In VC1-chat.
God willing.
There's they're going. Okay, Brother Roger, I loaded all the verses. Anyone have any questions or comments? You can put them in the chat, or you can wait till after Brother Roger's done, and we'll open it up the floor. Go ahead,
Sure.
brother. I seek refuge in God from Satan, the rejected.
Seek refuge in God from the Satan, the rejected. Quran is the wisdom. This is chapter 17, verse 39. This is some of the wisdom inspired to you by your Lord. You shall not set up another God beside God, lest you end up in Gehenna, blamed and defeated. Has your Lord given you boys while giving himself the angels as daughters? How could you utter such a blasphemy? We have cited in this Quran all kinds of examples that they may take heed, but it only augments their aversion. Say, if there were any other gods beside him, as they claim, they would have tried to overthrow the possessor of throne. Be glorified, he is much too exalted, far above their utterances. Everything glorifies God. Glorifying him are the seven universes, the earth, and everyone in them. There is nothing that does not glorify him, but you do not understand their glorification. He is Clement, forgiver. Disbelievers cannot understand Quran. When you read the Quran, we place between you and those who do not believe in the hereafter an invisible barrier. Quran, the only source. We place shields around their minds to prevent them from understanding it, and deafness in their ears. And when you preach your Lord using the Quran alone, they run away in aversion. The footnote says the Arabic word alone refers to God in 770, 39, 45, 40, 12, and 84, and 64. If you add these numbers, you get 361, which is 19 times 19. But if you include 1746, which refers to the Quran, the product is not a multiple of 19. Alone, therefore, refers to the Quran in 1746. We are fully aware of what they hear when they listen to you and when they conspire secretly. The disbelievers say you are following a crazy man. Note how they describe you and how this causes them to stray off the path. They said, after we turn into bones and fragments, we get resurrected anew. Say, even if you turn into rocks or iron, even if you turn into any kind of creation that you deem impossible, they will then say, who will bring us back? Say, the one who created you in the first place. They will then shake their heads and say, when will that be? Say, it may be closer than you think. The day he summons you, you will respond by praising him, and you will then realize that you had lasted in this life but a short while. Praise God.
Thank you very much, Brother Roger. We just read the verses. Peace and welcome everybody who joined. Chapter 17, verse 39 through 52. Brother Roger, do you have any questions or comments about the verses that you just read?
Brother, there's so many important points been mentioned in these verses, such as everything glorifying God, but I would like to highlight 7 and 45 about these believers cannot understand the Quran. And we witnessed this yet again today, where we were preaching the Quran and the person just could not grasp the message or even able to understand a single verse. And he went out of his way to mention that Quran is basically difficult to understand and there's contradiction. In other words, we saw that these believers really have been preventing from understanding the Quran, and we witnessed it today. This is very important. It again reminds us that understanding the true message of the Quran requires sincerity, and God is a teacher of Quran, and out of his mercy he sent us, especially to our generation. We were fortunate to witness God's messenger of the covenant, a great miracle of the Quran that increased our faith, as it mentioned in the verse ahead. Remove all our doubts. This is indeed a great blessing. So this again highlights for us the next verse also, that we place shields around their minds to prevent them from understanding, and deafness in their ears. And when you preach your Lord using the Quran alone, they run away in aversion. And unfortunately, we've been witnessing this over and over again on a daily basis. That when you use Quran alone, you want to preach Quran alone, they run away in aversion. That's all I have to say. Praise God. Any other comments will be appreciated.
Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions or comments about the verses you read? And you can, yeah, I was gonna say you can put your question in the chat, or you can just unmute and speak. We are in VC1-chat. Go ahead, Peter.
Did we read the footnote? I think Raju mentioned it, but did we actually read it for 1746?
So yeah, he did read it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Praise God. The comment you made is spot on, and it's funny. You hear this a lot. They will twist the grammar when you present this to Muslims. They'll say no, and when you preach your Lord alone using the Quran. And we were digging into this, and Rashad, in a submitter's perspective, points out that this is the same grammar that's used in Surah 60, verse 4. That when it says, Quran wahdahu, that this is in reference to the Quran. The funny thing is, even if you grant them that, you say, okay, when you preach your Lord alone, they still run away in aversion. So they don't want to use the Quran alone. They don't want to worship your Lord alone. They want to just basically set up another entity beside God. And they do that either, through praising of his servant, or by using a secondary source beside the Quran.
I did provide that reference in VC1-chat, where basically it discusses 1746. I could just read a very short portion of it. It says, if the word alone in 1746 were placed immediately after the word Rabbaka, your Lord, it would have been perfectly correct, but then it would convey a totally different meaning and a totally different criterion. As it is, the crucial word alone appears immediately after the word Quran, because this is what our Creator wishes to tell us. The expression is in 1746, Al-Quran wahdahu, which means the Quran alone. And we are to preach the Quran alone as the only source of religious law and guidance. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about the verses we have read?
I'll add something else. Oh, good.
No, sorry, just a quick one. The way it's translated there, usually I see, Al-Sama or Al-Sama, where it says the 7 universes. I thought that's heavens, or do they mean the same thing, like the universes and heavens? Referring to the same thing, right? 1744, sorry. Yeah.
So in the translation, we see that basically by God's messenger of the covenant, that the expression heavens, at least in reference to the 7 heavens, is actually 7 universes. And there's other verses that say that each of these universes, they have their own physical laws. What many traditionalists have the false understanding is that this is like 7 layers of the atmosphere.
Yeah. I've heard of that. Yeah. But I thought, because obviously mine may be a mistake, but like when I look at Sama, like all of that is always in the Quran. That word is used multiple times and is translated as heavens, right? But yeah, is it meant to be universe? Is that word then?
Yeah. I mean, the literal term is heavens, but the
heavens,
reference to it,
yeah.
The what it signifies is in context of the 7 universes. We're the innermost of the 7 universes. So the outermost would be paradise that Adam and Eve lived in.
Yeah, so it's like basically like it's basically everything between Earth and above it, basically, like Earth being the lowest, or if that was the center point, and then everything after that. Yeah.
What verse are you guys talking about? Or is it a verse?
1744. Yeah, it comes up a lot, that word. That
Got it. The 7 universes. Samawat. Is that what it is, Peter?
Yeah,
Correct,
Samawat. Yeah. That comes up multiple times, like in 229, 233, 2107. And it's always dominion
Right.
of the heavens and the earth, heavens and the earth,
Right.
originator of the heavens and the earth. So yeah, I'm
Sure.
guessing it's to do with everything outside of Earth, right? All the way up to whatever everything Allah's
Sure.
created in the universe.
Um, does anyone else have any questions or comments about the verses we read?
Yeah, peace be upon you. God bless you all. My comment goes with verse 39 and maybe 41, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك رب أن يحضرون. My observation in these two verses that the Quran is enough for all of us. If one is a believer, if you believe truly in God, then the Quran is enough for all of us. If you go for any other source beside the Quran, you are setting up another God beside God. Because whatever we need concerning our lives, our religion, God has given us in the Quran. And whatever example we need, God has given it to us in the Quran. All the wisdom that we need to understand our religion and to understand God and to worship Him alone, if we stick by the Quran, we will have it. So we cannot go for our opinions. We cannot go for other people's opinion, like the Hadith, has come to stand in the way of the religion of Islam today. Submission. Submission is the only way to God. And if we have to be submitters throughout our lives, then we have to stick to the Quran. This is what I understand of this verse.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. In Surah 18, 109, it also reminds us when God was telling Muhammad to say that if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, the oceans will run out before the words of my Lord runs out. Even if, we double the ink supply or something like that. So God is enough for us. The Quran is enough for us. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much. God bless you. They put the verse for you in the chat. Thank you so much, brother Bruno. 18109. Say, if the oceans were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would not run out before the words of my Lord run out, even if we double the ink supply. Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments about the verse we read? I had a comment about verse 1745, kind of along the lines of what was already said. But basically, it's not a language thing, right? Just before this Quran study, we had a debate between a Jewish man and a Shia man from the Middle East. It was very fascinating to me to see the Jewish person in America understood the Quran better than a native Arabic speaker in the Middle East. That's because the Quran says the language is irrelevant. If you're willing to learn, then you have more access to the Quran. 45 says, when you read the Quran, we place between you and those who do not believe in the hereafter an invisible barrier. So God says that language is irrelevant. What you need to understand the message of the Quran is sincerity. And that's the only thing that matters, not education, not wealth, not social status, not experience. None of these ultimately are the key that's going to get you there. Chapter 41, verse 44 says language is irrelevant. If we made it a non-Arabic Quran, they would have said, why did it come down in that language? Whether it is Arabic or non-Arabic, say for those who believe, it is a guide and healing. As for those who disbelieve, they will be deaf and blind to it, as if they are being addressed from far away. Doesn't matter if they're scholars of the Arabic language. They will not have access to the Quran. The Quran is unlike any other book on earth. Anybody else have any questions
Yeah.
or comments?
All right, I have a
Go ahead.
question.
Go ahead.
Can you go over 1745 when he said he placed the invisible barrier? Can you explain that?
I was going to give a comment on this, but maybe that will somehow address it. There's another verse in the Quran says when God alone is mentioned, zikrullahu wahdahu, and they're basically their hearts shrinks in aversion. They are not happy with it. But when others are mentioned, they are satisfied, and it's linked to the belief in the hereafter. I thought it was interesting that both the concept of believing in the hereafter is linked with worshiping God alone. And I think the link is the barrier is to my understanding is the fact that they disbelieve in the hereafter, that God is the only master of day of judgment. They believe others are there to intercede on their behalf, and in this world they have their supplications and they call on them to help them. And the same idea of the same mentality blocks them from understanding the verses of the Quran, where they think the idols are only statues. These are not talking about humans. Religious leaders cannot be idols. Other humans cannot be idols, or messengers and prophets cannot be idols. So this is the barrier that I understand. It's the God prevents them from understanding the true meaning of the verses. So it's basically it's invisible because you cannot see where the barrier is, but it just seems to be a mental block. That's what I understand from it. Thank you.
Peace be upon you. Maybe I just want to add to what you have said, brother. I want to support this 1745 with maybe you should attain verse 96 and 97, where God is saying, surely those condemned by a decree from your Lord cannot believe. No matter what kind of proof you show them, they cannot believe until they see the painful retribution. It is our decision that God uses. If you decide to believe in God, to, obey Him, He will show you all the way out, because this is the purpose of our existence in this world. We are here to redeem our souls, and God has given us all the opportunity we need to be redeemed to His kingdom, back to His kingdom. So if our decision, God has shown us the path, including the right one and the wrong one in the Quran. God will show you. If it's your decision to believe, to be submissive to God, He will show you all the way. But if you're not, He knows your heart. He knows your innermost thought. Before you declare it, He knows your decision. And so, if your decision is not to believe whatever you see about God, you will not believe. So it's a decree from God that whatever you see, no matter what kind of proof, you will not believe. Thank you.
All right, for everybody who joined, we read chapter 17, verse 39 through verse 52. Hafsa had a question about what is the shield or the invisible barrier. Yeah, it's like a block. Like they're not going to be able to understand it. It's just like a block. Like imagine there's a large cement wall between you and someone, and they try to talk to the other person. They cannot hear you. They don't understand you. It's just a barrier. They're blocked from understanding the Quran because they don't deserve to understand the Quran. You have to come to God with sincerity. You have to come to the Quran with an open heart. Otherwise, you're blocked out, and you may invoke God's curse upon you, and then you're stuck forever, and you go to hell.
One of the type of the blocks that happens is that they see the verses through the eyes of the tafsirs that the ulama has put. So they're not looking at the verses for what it says. they go to their ulama and they take their tafsir or their explanation of the verses with the doctrine of hadith being a source beside the Quran. So this is the blockage. So once you remove, that's one of the type of the blockage that happens. Once the only way that you can see the verses for what they are is that you remove those additional sources of laws and additional decrees that are not constituted by Quran, and then you can see the verses for what they are. Until they have that kind of way of interpreting the verse, you give them the verse, they come up with something that is very different from the essence of the book. So they're not getting the real message. So that's one of the blocks. That's at least one of the blocks that I've noticed with Sunnis and Shias. And the Quranists have different type of blocks. Everyone has the different one. It's not all the same. But it is because they have idols beside God that they're not willing to get rid of. They're not willing to purify the religion. And the idols, someone else is like, they idolize the prophets and the messengers and even their religious leaders, or they're idolizing their own opinion. So something that is blocking from getting the true meaning of the verses.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions or comments about the verses that we read?
Just to add on to that, like how
Go
the severity of that blockage. Even I remember I was reading it yesterday, or this morning, I guess. But had we bestowed 59:12, I think it is. Maybe I'm wrong, but the verse is, had we bestowed this ground from a high upon mountain, thou wouldst indeed see it humbling itself, breaking asunder for awe of God. And such parables we propound unto men, so that they might think or reflect. And when I think about that, someone said this when he talked about it, and I was like, oh yeah, that the disbelievers' hearts are even more like harder than a mountain. Do you know what I mean? To get through to them, kind of thing. Like if a mountain would humble itself, and you know how massive mountains are, you know what I mean? Someone who's a human, who's way tinier than that, you can't even get through to them when you've shown them the Quran. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just going to comment on what the brother said before. We actually witnessed this today. Naveed was talking with the brother and put in a verse in the chat to read. He didn't even want to read it. He said he's not going to even try to interpret it. He has to go to some type of scholar to get an understanding of it.
59:21. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I've had that as well. Like where when I started reading it, and they kept saying, "Oh, you can't, understand it. You need to go to scholar." And I says, "Why don't you read it?" It says, "No, I'm not gonna because I'm not good enough to read it." And I was like, "Whoa, what do you mean, man? Allah made it for everyone to understand and read. He'll teach you. It's His book. Ain't no human who knows it better than Him. You know what I mean? He'll guide you the right way to understand it. You understand?" And even Allah says, I can't remember if I read it correct, but He says, "I'll teach you the Quran. You read it, and I'll show you what you need to know through it." And I was like, how has that happened? But it's just He basically sets up a way of you learning it that you will respond to. Do you understand? As long as you're open.
Right.
From what I understand.
Anyone else have comments about these particular verses?
Yeah, I do. Makes sense. What you guys were saying, like, you're basically rejecting him and the divine principles. So he's like rejecting you. He places the veil over their hearts and their minds. It makes sense. And when you reach out and take steps to go closer and follow those things, and it kind of opens back up. But I had a question about 1744. It's more of like I'm sort of summarizing it. Trying to break it down.
Go ahead. What's your question, brother?
So in the beginning verses, talks about Quran is wisdom, like set up no other gods besides God alone. God is saying, how could humans set up like basically demigods, like half gods, having, with the sons and then him with daughters? Like, how could they say that? And God is saying many examples in the Quran to listen to, but it's saying it only increases their dislike. It augments their aversion. I'm assuming that's the disbelievers. So like it's increasing their dislike those other examples of like whenever it
You said
establishes clarity.
You said verse 44?
Yeah, like leading up to 44 from basically 39 and then to 44. I was kind of summarizing everything before 44. Um, if there are any other gods besides him, they would have tried to overthrow the throne. Seems like it's following the demigod examples, like 39 to 43. Sort of like the story, we hear the stories of like the Greek, Zeus and all this stuff, like Hades trying to overthrow Zeus. And it's saying God is much exalted above this like nonsense, basically, far above their utterances. And it's saying, so this 44, everything is glorifying God, glorifying him, the seven universes, earth, everyone in them. We don't understand their glorification. This is literally, to me, I was thinking it's like literally saying the material world, like meaning the universe, like atoms basically, and us and everything inside is like glorifying. So it has like a relationship. Like we don't know what it's saying right there. Like we don't really know what that means. We don't understand it, but everything is doing that, and it makes sense. Like there's already a relationship, like how it's saying it's like written in our hearts, and like whenever you're basically born, and so it's everything's already doing that and like in sync. And then whenever like sort of like people's minds get warped or whatever, they disbelieve, it's like going against the whole thing because everything in the universe is already doing that, like glorifying him. It's already like there, right? That's kind of like what I always say, like sometimes for a disbeliever it's like better to be an animal in the animal position than a disbeliever, because they're doing that. Kind of what I got out of this verse. But it's interesting to like if we can. So my question was for this verse 44, how can this be? Like, should we not try to understand it? It says that we don't. It says that there's nothing that does not, but you do not understand their glorification. So we don't understand how these things are glorifying him. But my question is, should we try to understand that? And is that sort of like what science is about? Or it doesn't have to be science, but anything that's bringing us closer in the things that we do. We have like different things, psychology, whatever, like things that we try to do. Is that like our understanding, or is there some direct understanding from the Quran we can try to like understand this, like strive to understand this, or is it like sort of like it says we do not understand, but can we understand? I guess is my question.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't understand. We can try.
I mean,
Who-
wouldn't it be kind of like trying to understand the language of animals, right? We can't understand the language of
No,
animals. We
that's
don't
so
understand.
weird. Yeah, stop.
I'm sorry, was somebody else saying something and I interrupted?
No,
I think
please keep
Hafsa has
talking.
not
Please.
like
No, it wasn't Hafsa. Please continue talking.
I was just saying, like, we have to look at this as all of God's creation is somehow worshiping him, right? We can't understand the worship of a tree. We can't understand the worship of the mountains or anything, So, I mean, it's a nice thing to sit and think about, but unless you can hear them in some way, then you're just never going to understand. Some things are just meant to be that we don't know in this life. Just
Of
accept.
course, I agree. Like God's ways are higher than our ways, and there's things that we won't even come close to. But like, do we do that by studying the relationships of like, you know, molecules or math or different things? Like when it comes to our psychology or the relationship between the material, how things in the material universe are related, and then we can sort of see like maybe a drop of some little insight to see the connection between them and how God structured everything.
Yeah, there's
That's
nothing
kind of what
wrong
I was
with
getting
there's
at.
nothing wrong with making observations to better appreciate God's creation. That's a good thing. There's no problem with that.
If anything,
This is
sorry, just
kind
to
of what I
add,
was getting.
Yeah.
just
I
to add
think
to that being as
they glorify
oh, sorry.
God just by doing what they're supposed to do. They submit. The bees make honey. The sun rises and sets. So think that's glorification, just submitting and doing what they were designed to do. It's a form of glorification, at least submitting.
Just to add to what
I
you said,
agree.
Bean.
It's like design. Oh, sorry.
No, go. It's all right. You wanted to say something first?
No, go ahead. I was just replying.
No, just adding to what you said, like you think about all the things we studied, like the relationship of how plants produce oxygen and take in carbon dioxide, and we produce the carbon dioxide they need to do that, and we take in the oxygen from them. So that, like, although we may not know fully how they glorify it, I think it's good to study because we've studied so many things where we realize the relationship of why flies exist. You know, they're like detritus feeders; they eat waste, right? I remember reading up, like, we all think flies are dirty beings and things like that, but they're all necessary. And when I look at how Allah's set up in the system, I read, what if there were no flies, you know, that existed, and it was that we'd actually have more waste, and it would take way longer for waste matter to decompose. So we'd have, you know, a lot of rubbish everywhere. Do you know what I mean? So it shows you even just the thing that we kind of complain about sometimes when we see them and try to squash them, they're actually doing a job that is required that we may not fully understand. Do you know what I mean? Unless we study it.
Yeah. God bless you. This isn't for this brother, Zane. This is just a general comment I wanted to make. Please, there's a lot of people here. If you could just
Sorry.
keep your comments short. No, just for everybody. If you could keep your comments
Yeah, I just
short,
wanted to
be
say that
great.
one.
Just,
Sorry.
it's just for more
Thank
people
you
to
for
be
that.
able to speak because a lot of people want to talk. So just keep your comments very brief and just keep it to the point. And right now we're focused on the verses. So please make it about the verses 1739 through 52. And then we're going to have the open section of the Quran study in 28 minutes, God willing. But right now we're focused on these verses. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the verses that we're on?
There are a couple of
Thanks
verses
for
in the chat.
clarifying that.
You might want to read them.
Yeah, they're not these verses. People are just loading other verses, so we can't just
No,
we
I know.
can't
I know,
keep
but
going
they're
to other
related.
verses.
They're related.
What verse is it related to?
Okay, 2441. It says, let me read the verse. Went too far down. It says, do you not realize that everything in the heavens and everything in the heavens and the earth glorify God, even the birds as they fly in a column? Each knows its prayer and its glorification. God is fully aware of everything they do. And also 2218 was posted by Brother Ibrahim. It says, do you not realize that to God prostrates everything in the heavens and the earth, and the sun and the moon, and the stars and the mountains, and the trees and the animals, and many people, many other among the people are committed to doom. Whoever God shames, none will honor him. Everything is in accordance with God's will. Okay. Yeah, so I thought those at least are related to the concept of glorification of God.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions or comments about the verses we read?
Just one last comment on the, or at least from me. Like I said, I've been reading the Quran every month for a couple of years now, and I just noticed how many times it repeatedly says people questioning the resurrection and being brought back to life. I just wonder. Of course, this is from the Quran from back when Muhammad's time, but I wonder how many people today actually doubt whether there'll be a day of resurrection. And also the same with the day of judgment. It constantly says that people don't believe in the day of judgment. I'm just curious to know how many people actually do believe or doubt that we'll be resurrected.
Yeah, I would say it's
Yeah.
most people. Most people disbelieve, right? God says in 12:103, most people, no matter what, they're not even going to believe at all. This is all nonsense to them. And then out of those who do believe, God knows how many people that actually even believe in God. They even believe in the day of judgment. It's not very common, actually. And I would think most of the people that we even debate and talk to, the religious folks, even they don't even truly believe in the day of judgment. Because if they did, they would not be so reckless in their speech.
Yeah, there's another understanding that they do believe in something, but they're not believing in the day of judgment. They're believing in something that will happen, Like some people believe in that they will be resurrected, but there are also other people that are going to decide on that day their fate, the prophets and the saints. So that kind of day of judgment doesn't exist. So in all practical purposes, they do not believe in the hereafter. They believe on a different hereafter that does not exist. Or the people, they think they will come back to life and in other creatures and whatnot. So they don't believe in this hereafter either. So they believe that they're going to just keep reliving life in the different forms.
Right.
So there are,
Brother Alfred had a comment. Brother Alfred, do you want to unmute yourself and state your comment, or do you want me to read it for you? What would you prefer, brother? Okay. Brother Alfred wrote in the chat, he said, "Peace, bro. A really short reminder regarding verse 52. Let's read verse 52. It says, the day he summons you, you will respond by praising him. And you will then realize that you had lasted in this life but a short while." And he wrote, "This life is very short and is preparing us for the hereafter, God willing. A great reminder to strive every day and get better, God willing." That's a fantastic reminder, brother. God bless you. Anybody else wanted to make a comment about these verses?
Peace be upon you. Can someone help me to, expound on this verse 42 to 44, please, on the greatness of God? Yeah, thank you.
Does somebody want to reply to that? I guess just a brief expansion on the greatness of God in 42 to 44. I think it's just 42 to 4. Yeah, 42 to 44. That's right.
17:42 to 44. Yeah, that one.
Yes. Yeah, so everything glorifies God. Everything. Willingly or unwillingly. Everything glorifies God.
I just
You
want to
see
know.
this
can we?
pattern.
Okay, go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
you see this pattern in the Quran. Usually, any time where some aspect of God is being, questioned or put in a bad light, it follows with glorification of God. It's not a coincidence that after it talks about, assigning angels as daughters and, gods beside God, that it falls with be he glorified, he is much too exalted, far above their utterances, glorifying him are the seven universes. If you look like it's Surah 2, verse 30, even the angels, when they question, God's decision in placing a Khalifa, they say, be you glorified, right? So this is just a common kind of theme you'll see in the Quran. Any time that a verse, may bring down God in even the slightest, it follows with basically exalting God and glorifying him.
So can it be understood that glorification can also mean submitting to what God has commanded to? And it's an example that the messenger of covenant provided, your hearts and your bodies doing what God is telling it to do.
True, but there's also a kind of a linguistic aspect to it too. The concept of sopana, right? We say glorify. It means to elevate, to bring up. So, for instance, things that are floating would come from the same root. So it's whatever it is that you're bringing up, and then same thing when you say wa ta'ala, right? That you're exalting God. Anything that might bring His name, His attributes, His existence down. It's followed with this aspect of elevating and exalting His name. But yeah, no doubt. I mean, everything is submitting willingly or unwillingly to God. No one has any choice in that matter. Even when someone thinks that they're, quote unquote, rebelling, it's still in accordance with God's will.
And I guess too, it starts with saying that there were other gods. Of course, they all would be fighting for the throne, right?
That's right, brother.
Well, this actually, what's interesting is you see it in every other, theist, let's put it this way, like a religious faith that has multiple deities, multiple gods. It's a perpetual feud. And then what's funny is in the context of Christianity, like you won't find a honest Christian who doesn't say that Jesus is subordinate to God. They have to come up with these terms. Oh, he's economically subordinate, this and that, but they know that they're not co-equal in the sense where one substitutes for the other, because it doesn't make any sense. Every time Jesus in the Bible is quoting, he says that he's basically at the mercy of the will of God. Nothing he does is from its own; is from God. So it's putting Jesus subordinate to God. This concept of two gods being actually co-equal or challenging one another, even on a mathematical philosophical standpoint, it doesn't hold. It doesn't make sense. How can you have two omnipotent beings?
Right? And even Jesus says the Father is greater, but then they try to refute that.
Peace be upon you, everybody. If I may add, mic check.
Go ahead, brother. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Oh,
Peace be upon you. Go ahead.
Peace be upon you. So, following up on or piggybacking from, like, how can there be two omnipotent beings? Also, like, God is truth, right? Capital T, truth. So, how can there be two truths? If we do a logical exercise, there can't be, right? It actually it actually disproves it. So, let me give the example. If I say I have truth and you have truth, then actually the truth is we both have some truth, right? The truth will always overcome and be bigger than. So, like, and even if, okay, I don't want to go into too big a tangent. Does that track, or is there a better way to explain that piece of what I want to say? Because I want to bring it back to Surah 17, verse 42. But I want to see if I've explained it well enough so far. That there can only be one truth. That anytime there's even if I have some truth, you have some truth. Logically speaking, you can do a logical exercise to get to only one truth that will encompass every piece of truth that has been established.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
I'm looking. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if that's the case, so God is truth. And then when we see ayat 42, I seek refuge in God from Satan, the rejected, it says, say, if there were any other gods besides him, as they claim, they would have tried to overthrow the possessor of the throne. So what comes to mind for me is God is truth. So if we're looking to God's true qualities, if there were in this exercise, there would be the idea of there being another capital T truth that's, I mean, in the reality that God has given us to understand him, I mean, it's impossible. You can't have two capital T truths. In fact, say I have the true truth and you have the true truth, then the truth would be we both have the truth, which is self-defeating, because now you know that's impossible. Like, the capital T truth will then be above the lie of the capital T truth that will encompass what we both said. I will actually prove that that there can be both capital T truths. Is that, like, the capital T truth rises above, it's beyond, even if I claim absolute truth and then you claim absolute truth, right? So I'm talking about the capital T truth and, like, fighting itself, as like trying to overthrow the possessor of the throne. Does that make any sense
Yeah,
to you guys?
I'm looking at it from a perspective of, and that's how I see it, qualities, right? Because we don't know God unless we know his qualities, right? So to my understanding, God qualities or God names are absolute. So there's absoluteness about it. So when God says he's here, this is an absolute quality. It means that there's not a situation or utterances that he does not.
Moment. Is there anything you need?
Sorry,
They're coming.
someone's got a hot mic.
They're
All right.
Please,
So
just keep going. Just keep your comments short.
yeah.
Please.
So it's the absolute truth means that God is the God is the hearer of everything. So when they say the imams or the prophet or someone else, that's have same type of quality. When people call him, that's where the competition comes in. But now if someone's trying to overthrow the throne, because God is not the absolute truth, the only absolute truth, or the only hearer. he's not the one that hears everything. There's some other creature that also share in his absolute qualities. We can hear and we can see, but our hearing and our seeing or being present is limited. It's not absolute.
Please, God
Thank you.
bless you. Just please, if you keep your comments short, that would be a lot better. I promise everyone will pay attention more too. God bless you. Anybody else have any questions or comments about the verses we read? 1739 to 4052.
I got a comment.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
wanted to talk about this aspect of shields on their minds. There's a supernatural component, and then there's also a component that God created a mechanism in this world. Just like fire, if you stick your hand in it, it'll burn. Right? There's another mechanism that if you make the decision to disbelieve, your brain is going to be wired in a way where you're going to find reasons to disbelieve. And if you choose to believe, your brain's going to be wired to find evidence to confirm your belief, and this is called confirmation bias. If you look at Surah 19 verse 75 and 76, it brings this up. It says, say, those who choose to go astray, the most gracious will lead them on until they see what is promised for them, either the retribution or the hour. That is when they find out who really is worse off and weaker in power. It says, God augments the guidance of those who choose to be guided, for the good deeds are eternally rewarded by your Lord and bring far better returns. So, while there's a supernatural component, it actually corresponds with, the laws of this world. That whatever it is you believe, you're going to find confirmation for that belief.
Right, that's kind of our human psychology, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, well, God is the doer of everything. He created a system by which these are the laws that it operates under. So when God seals their minds, place shields where they can't see, it's like, yeah, it's part of God's design.
And that's why it's saying that we're doing it like the human being who disbelieves. They're doing it to themselves. So it's not like it's like they're shutting it out. And what's the worst thing to shut out is the creator and everything. 'Cause, like, think about it, like everything is glorifying him, and like you're disbelieving him, you're shutting like everything out. It's like one of the worst things to do.
I wanted to add another note regarding the verses we read. In 45 says, when you read the Quran, we place between you and those who do not believe in the hereafter an invisible barrier. And Amin also read another verse that has this expression, 39:45, where it says, if you're not content with the mention of God alone, it's actually a sign that you don't believe in the hereafter. So now we're saying, those who don't believe in the hereafter, they're not going to accept the Quran alone. They're not going to accept the mention of God alone. And there's a third instance in Surah 6, verse, I believe it's 113, but I'm going to start from 112. It says, when we have permitted the enemies of every prophet, human and jinn devils, to inspire each other fancy words in order to deceive. Had your Lord willed, they would not have done it. You shall disregard them and their fabrications. Then 113 reads, this is to let the minds of those who do not believe in the hereafter listen to such fabrications and accept them, and thus expose their real convictions. It seems like, these decisions that someone makes to choose to follow another source beside the Quran or beside God, to choose to mention other names beside God, almost like their brains are going to be configured in such a way where they're going to disbelieve in this concept of the hereafter. Even though they might say it with their lips, right? Their actions do not correspond with what they claim is their belief.
So that's kind of like just like everything is glorified, like the bees are doing what the bees do. Like if we're in correct accordance, then that will be also in the correct accordance. But if you're not, that's what, like people saying it with their lips, but they're not really in that configuration.
Exactly. If your seed, right, is distorted, it's broken, it's impure, And eventually, when that seed takes root, it grows into a plant, it starts producing fruit. The fruit's going to be bitter, right? We have to spend more time perfecting and purifying that kernel. And from that, when we grow in religion, when we grow in faith, we're going to, God willing, produce good fruit from it. And I think that's a key component. More often than not, people, they go straight into saying, look, they just jump into it without going through that purification. And because they haven't purified, the very foundation of devotion to God alone, worship of God alone, submission to God alone, they're going to build on a corrupt kernel. And when their religion grows, it's just going to be inundated with idol worship, shirk, and things that aren't going to produce good fruit.
And I like how 44 ends. He is Clement, forgiver. Is basically saying patient, forgiving, most, forgiving. And it makes sense because that kernel, like sometimes we have incorrect understanding or whatever. Like I just, myself, I just started actually paying attention more like recently and stuff. So the fact that it ends like that, it's like a saving grace by his grace, because like you might have a kernel and that's the goal, like you were saying, is constant purification, making it better, purer. And but it's like that forgiving aspect. You get a lot of, God is most forgiving, most merciful. You get a lot of chances to do this, and it's like you're constantly honing that kernel, refining it.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to make announcements in 8 minutes, God willing, at the halfway mark of the Quran study. We have announcement of several new submitters, God willing, so this is really exciting. I think we actually have a new record of new submitters, but I'm not going to want to get into that now. Right now, God willing, we're still talking about the verses 39 to 52 in chapter 17. Anyone have any questions about these verses or comments that you want to share with us? Verse 41 says, we have cited in this Quran all kinds of examples that they may take heed, but it only augments their aversion. That's true. Every time we give more examples, they get more entrenched in their false doctrine and beliefs, and they don't listen. It's beautiful how the Quran prophesies exactly what the disbelievers are going to do, and this should increase our faith every time we witness it.
Which verse is that? I'm sorry, I came in late. Which verse is that? Again, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, verse 41, 1741. It says, we have cited in this Quran all kinds of examples that they may take heed, but it only augments their aversion. An aversion means a strong dislike or disinclination. So they are turned off, they turn away, they're discouraged. We give more examples from the Quran, they get more discouraged from the Quran.
I have a comment.
Yes, please go ahead.
It's strange because the Quran says this is going to happen, and you would think logically, because every time I hear these people being like no and denying it and arguing with it, even though it's like presented right before them like plainly, I'm always like, how can they not see it? I don't understand. But it like defies logic, you know? And it's funny that the Quran is saying this because that's the answer, you know? Because any like plain regular person would see it and just be like, oh, there it is. It's right there before your eyes. But the Quran is saying that this is why it's happening. So I just thought that was interesting.
That's true.
I'd like to add something to that. When I started like reading the Quran, well, at the time I was a Quranist, like when I started submitting, I remembered that God, when He puts a verse in front of my eyes, He is talking to me. Like this is what Rashid Khalifa was saying to in one of his sermons. He was saying, "I'm talking to you," And this is exactly what the Quran does, but they don't believe that the Quran is talking about them. It's just like the Christians don't believe that the gospel is talking about them, or Jews don't believe that the Torah is talking about them. It's talking exactly to them, and if we don't realize it, we can't believe.
Very good. Anyone else?
I'll share one other thing. This actually there's a couple things. So one, it says in verse 40, has your Lord given you boys while giving himself the angels as daughters? How could you utter such a blasphemy? And some people they take these verses, they say, oh look, the Quran is sexist, it's preferring the boys over the girls. And what they fail to see is like, no, the Quran is against this concept that God has children of any sort. So, for instance, if you go to Surah 19, verse 88 through 93, it says, they said the most gracious has begotten a son. You have uttered a gross blasphemy. The heavens are about to shatter. The earth is about to tear asunder. The mountains are about to crumble because they claim that the most gracious has begotten a son. It is not befitting the most gracious that he should beget a son. Every single one in the heaven and the earth is a servant of the most gracious. So, to claim that, oh, the Quran's being sexist in this regard is just taking one verse and not looking at the total Quran. Because God is saying in this one that attributing a son to him, that the heavens and the earth are about to shatter because of this.
Yeah, it's sort of like how the older, whatever ancient Greeks like used to believe in like demigods, basically, half man, half God type thing. And that's what I got from it. It was alluding to. It was like saying, how could you associate like children? Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just share one other one before we get to the announcements. In verse 46, it says, and when you preach your Lord using the Quran alone, they run away in aversion. It's actually prophesied in the Quran that the Muslims are going to abandon this Quran. It's one of these aspects that they're willfully ignorant to this prophecy in the Quran. So in Surah 25, verse 27 through 30, it reads, "The day will come when the transgressor will bite his hands in anguish and say, Alas, I wish I had followed the path with the messenger. At last, woe to me, I wish I did not take that person as a friend. He has led me away from the message after it came to me. Indeed, the devil lets down his human victims. And the messenger's testimony on the day of resurrection against his people is, the messenger said, My Lord, my people have deserted this Quran." It's prophesied in the Quran that the Muslims are going to do this, yet they act as if this is not the case. They have to be
That's what they
willfully blind
actually doing.
first.
That's
Yeah.
what they doing. I absolutely agree. That's what they doing. Even me and Naveed, we talks with a lot of people that's the first thing they do is just bring the hadith to everything, literally. So that's what they doing. They don't believe in the Quran. They believe and preach and live by the hadiths and sunnah. They don't live nothing what is written in the Quran, zero. Same thing like you just mentioned. I don't know who was talking. They was saying about Christians, about Jesus, Son of God. The Muslims today, they do the same thing about Prophet Muhammad. They think that he's that he's gonna save them, and it's like going through Muhammad to God. It's just like literally the same thing. Like Christians do about Jesus. It's no different.
Perfectly about this in the Quran. It says they worship them because they think it will get them closer to God, but actually they misguide.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I said there's a verse. Yeah, if maybe I'll find it, God willing. It says that they say we worship them because they're closer to God, so they will help us.
Mm-hmm. But that's not the case.
God bless you. We're just at the halfway mark of the Quran study. I wanted to do announcements. We have several announcements, but first, we have several new submitters.
Oh,
That
exciting.
yes, yeah, it is exciting. We can go down the list. Sister Huda, are you available to speak? Can you briefly explain your story to submission?
Yes, so a lot of
Not
sisters.
you, not you, sister. God bless you, Lily Ann.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot there's another Huda.
We'll get to you after, Kevin. Yeah, the
Peace be
one.
upon you all.
Peace be upon you. Welcome.
Thank you. So just to clarify, I haven't 100% submitted yet, but I'm like almost there. So my journey was has been just through like learning from everyone in the group so far who has been like super kind and supportive, and it's been a very eye-opening journey. And honestly, I don't know what you want me to share, to be honest, right now.
Oh yeah, just your brief journey on how you got here and how you. I mean, I guess became a 99% submitter. I don't know, like how you describe yourself. How did you find? Just very brief your religious journey, how you found submission, how you found the server, and your experience, and what made you, I guess, decide to get to wherever you're at now.
Okay. So religious background. My family, they both came from Shia background, but they disowned those beliefs and they raised us as just Muslims. And then through my own journey, I was never really religious growing up. And then because of certain life events, they led me towards studying Islam. And when I did come to a point where I started studying, I turned mostly towards the Salafi ideology, which included like a lot of hadiths and whatnot. And I never took it as law, but it just didn't really sit right with me, although I was learning from it. Then during a trip to Iraq with my family, a lot of my family there is Shia, so they tried to like turn me towards Shiism. And so I ended up just studying a lot of different hadiths, and like a lot of it contradicted itself, and it never sat right with me, and it didn't make sense. So I kind of just like left it and focused mostly on the Quran. And then recently, about a week ago, I was on TikTok, and that's when I found one of your submission team members' videos, Triple A's video on TikTok. And I started going through, and a lot of it was super clear and super simple to follow, and it just made so much sense. So I ended up joining the Discord, and that's when I started learning more. And now I'm just like going through the tafsirs and the Quran English version, and learning a lot from you and everyone in here, and yeah, it's been a really great journey.
God bless you and congratulations. I don't know why, but AAA is always absent whenever you're speaking. But God bless AAA for his striving and praise God. Thank you so much for coming, and God bless you for your sincerity and having an open heart for the truth.
Thank you, and God bless you all.
God bless you. Next person that needed to speak was, oh, go ahead.
I just want to ask Huda. She has on there handmade Islamic gifts. Do you create those gifts?
Yes, in my free time, I do artwork and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
God bless you. Sister Sophia, did you want to, are you able to speak?
Yeah, it might be kind of loud though, because my toddlers are here.
We've never
Forgive
heard
me.
your toddlers before. We've never
You
heard them. You'd
have!
be surprised at how effective the Discord noise cancellation is.
Yeah, I think it really is, because that's really surprising. Yeah, so I was raised Christian, and I married into a Muslim family, but I never like really thought about converting or anything. And then recently, I started learning about Islam, and then I converted. And kind of after I converted, I didn't even really know what hadiths were. And when I started learning about them, it kind of surprised me. And I was like, this is just like Christianity. And so I started researching more, and I went on TikTok, and that's where I found Naveed, like doing a live, and I went on there and chatted with him, and I joined the server and learned about Code 19 and mind blown. And then, yeah, this is where I am now.
Well, thank you very much. Who else do we have a new submitters batch? Francis is a new submitter, but he's deafened. Brother Bruno is here. Bruno, can you speak a few words briefly about your journey and how you found us?
Happy to. Peace be upon everybody.
God
Very
bless
happy
you.
to be here. God
Thanks
bless
for
you too.
being
God
here.
bless you all.
Thanks for being here. Yeah.
Thank God I'm here. So I mean, I grew up sort of atheist agnostic, I guess, and at one point I'll try to keep it brief, but always, well, God willing, I'll share it all with anybody if you guys want to talk on the side. But at one point, I actually asked God to show me that He was real, and that God actually showed me miracles, and that's when I actually began studying the Quran and became Muslim, not knowing exactly what that meant, but because of the miracles, knowing that the Quran was from Him. And so I went, I went very hard at studying the Quran, and instinctively kind of was Quran only. And then at one point, God showed me Code 19. I don't recall exactly how, but He showed me Code 19, and I bought a copy of Rashad's authorized translation. And actually, I'm a software engineer, so I got to do some calculations that I think are in Appendix 1. They're like superhuman calculations in some appendix. And so I was able to see it, right? But there's also the verses that kind of, you can use the math, of course, but there's verses that talk about the code itself. And so it all just, God showed it to me and it clicked. And so like so there was this Quranist versus, I guess, submitter piece of it too. Like at one point, right, thinking Quran alone, how many salat, is it 3, is it 5? God guided me to 5. And of course, to witnessing that Rashad was His messenger of the covenant. So thank God for the good of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, please don't use that soundboard. But thank you.
Why not? Let him use and celebrate. Why not, Naveed? Why can he not use that? Why? He's celebrating, praise be to God in the name of God. Let him
Wasn't
enjoy that.
him. That wasn't him. It was
Who
somebody
was?
else.
Oh,
It was
let's
somebody
go. Go
else.
ahead. Put it again so we can hear the celebration of new submitters on this planet. Yes, God. Yes. Yes.
Let's get ready to rumble!
That's a beautiful thing. Congratulations to all of you. God bless you. And again, only God can guide. Hallelujah.
We have
Praise be to
another,
God.
God bless you. Yeah, hallelujah. We have another sister, new submitter, Sister CJ. Can you speak, please? Sister CJ Isma, are you able to talk now?
Hello.
Yeah, peace be upon you. Yeah, if you wanted to briefly, yeah, peace and welcome. If you could briefly explain your journey to submission.
Yeah, I grew up in a Christian background, Catholic, growing up going church. Then when I came to England, I grew up with many Muslims. When I came to university, one of my friends were Muslim. So I decided to start studying the Quran. When I started studying the Quran, I decided to convert. After that, I wanted to know a little bit more. Then I found the Quran Talk channel. And after watching like all of his videos, I was like, okay, this makes more sense. Then I found Rashad Khalifa. I started reading the Rashad Khalifa translation. Then I decided to become a submitter. Yeah.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. The one in the background, whoever. Um, what was the reaction of the family? Like when you guys said, I'm becoming a submitter Muslim to Almighty God. What was their reaction?
My mom, when I told her like I was becoming Muslim, she had already so many things on her mind because the stereotypes that comes with becoming Muslim, especially where she grew up, she was a bit like she didn't like it. However, my dad was very supportive. He was like, "Yeah, if that's what you want to become, that's completely fine," and he supported me all the way.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. And your dad, is he Catholic as well, or he is?
My dad is Catholic, but
He's
he doesn't. But he doesn't really practice it. He's very open-minded to every religion.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's beautiful. I'm happy that you find the truth, and God bless you, sister and brothers,
God
and
bless you
everybody
too.
here.
Thank you.
That's
God bless you
beautiful.
guys.
We actually have more submitters. They're just not, I guess, available in this moment. Hafsa also became a submitter. She's not, I guess, here or this available in this moment. I think today is the record of most number of submitters in the shortest amount of time because we had 6 or 7 new submitters in the last 2 days. This is a new record for the server in 3 years of the server activity. Praise God.
That is beautiful.
God.
Praise be to God. Praise be to God alone. In the name of God. That's
Did I miss
beautiful.
any? Yeah, God bless you. Did I miss it? I'm so sorry if I missed any new submitter that wanted to introduce themselves. I'm so sorry. If I missed anybody, please let me know.
Bean.
Okay,
Bean.
Mom.
Brother Peter, would you be please send Brother Francis a friend request? He came through Quran Talk and he wanted to speak with you today. I don't know why he's not here. I did tag him, but he did want to speak with you and meet you. So if you have the opportunity
Okay.
to friend him, he would appreciate that, I'm sure. Praise God. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Rose. I think you had some announcements, Rose.
Just one announcement. So next Friday at 6 p.m. my time, God willing, I'm gonna do a town hall meeting for the sisters in VC6. We have a lot of new submitters, and the majority of them are sisters. And so they were we created a group chat, and a lot of them were asking questions. So and asked me to open up V6 again to have the women's nights. So God willing, I'm going to do that next Friday, and it's just a general open forum for women to be able to come in and ask any questions they want regarding, family, marriage, women issues, or any issue that they just want to discuss that they maybe wouldn't be comfortable doing in the general VCs. So if it's productive and people actually participate, I will move forward with doing it weekly or bi-weekly from then on. So we'll just see how it goes.
I just want to add. I just wanted to add real quick, just for everybody listening, the other women, the group chat was created, and we tried to add everybody, but there's a 10-person restriction to the chats, so that's why, if you're hearing about it and you don't know, or you're aware that you wasn't added, that's why it wasn't, favorites or anything like that. I just wanted to point that out.
Just to be clear,
Shared the link, but
the group you're talking about is not related to the server. It's not on the server, so it's not a channel or anything that we control, or it has nothing to do with me or the server.
It was
no,
a
it's
private.
just a group. Yeah, it's just a private chat with 10 of us in it, all women. But I did just post the link for the calendar event in VC1 chat for anybody who's interested. Please, if you do click on interested, please click on interested if you're actually going to show and you're actually going to participate, because this was the issue I had before, and why I stopped having them is because we'd have a lot of people say they're interested and either not come or come and just sit there. So it is a chance for the sisters here to learn from other sisters. So please take advantage of that. Even if you don't have questions, you may have answers. So you may have answers for other sisters. So just keep in mind, it's a good way to strive and help your fellow sisters to come closer to God. Praise God, God willing, we can continue doing it often. All I have to say. Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've had a decreased amount of support for the TikToks recently, but it's like realistically, guys, the majority of the new submitters are coming from TikTok. So I strongly encourage people to support the lives because that's the main source of new people coming to submission. So I cannot do the TikToks without people's support. So if I go on the TikTok live and I don't have submitter support, then I'm gonna have to cancel the live and leave. But if I get submitter support, then I can get 30, 40, 50 people exposed. Last night we had over 1,000 people witness the TikTok live. It was a very successful live. So I strongly encourage everyone who's able, willing, and capable or interested in striving or getting some credit to burning off some of those sins. Please help. Giving the message to people, I would say, is better than feeding people. Because if you feed someone, they'll survive in this life. But if you give someone the message, they can survive in the next life.
Navid, I wanted to ask you.
That's why, Navid, you need to start posting on your TikTok. I've said this before. Keep posting on your videos like.
Yeah, I really do need to. And if anyone wants to be part of a production team to help me produce videos for
Come
me to
on,
post on my
Navid.
TikTok,
What are you waiting? What are you waiting for?
I'm
You have
not
to listen to.
technical. I'm not technical. I'm not good at
No,
it.
no, no. You should be doing like, what's his other guy's name? I
Triple A
forgot.
is the guy's more intelligent than me. He's a smart
No,
guy.
no, no. I saw your videos. I went through it. You were amazing. So you want to bring some more
Yeah, I got a
submitted?
lot of.
You gotta be the one who starts first. You start, because I feel like we the rest are doing it, but you're the one who just sitting there and not just telling what, but you not posting nothing, nothing.
And even with by posting nothing, I'm doing my lives and still bringing a lot of people by God's leave.
That's good, but
Just
you
Navid,
gotta.
saying.
is there multiple TikToks, like multiple submission TikToks, or just the one main
Yeah,
one?
there is multiple submission TikToks. I mean, well, they're not multiple submission TikToks. These are individual accounts from individuals, but we have an official like submission server TikTok, but like we do it um mainly through my account. When I go and I do TikTok live, for example, last night we did a 3 hour live. We had 1,000 viewers and we reach a lot of people. A lot of people we reach. And what happens is someone famous joins, and then when they come up on the panel, then all their followers get notified too. So, for example, we had someone, I think last night, 200, 300,000 followers, and they came up just asking questions. It was a rebirth girl. And then when she comes up, all their followers get notified. And then if any of those people come up and they come on the panel, all their followers get notified. And so I need help in terms of tapping the screen and getting more likes, bumping the activity, and then also sharing the live and commenting in the chats and being on the panel, because there's 8 people that can be on the panel separate from me. So there's me and 8 other people. And so if I have submitters filling the slots and then I have 2 or 3 slots for non-submitters, it really streamlines the process and it helps it be more effective and efficient. So this
Do you
is
know like
proven to be yeah.
do you know like demographics? Is it mainly like Muslims or religious people that are in the TikTok channel? Is it like
Yeah,
just
100%. Yeah,
all?
because it comes on people's For You page. So for example, like the girl that was on today, she came from the live last night, right? She said, "You're on my For You page. I saw you preaching the Quran. This is what I was always looking for." And then that's it, right? Like people just join. So it has a huge impact. And this is reaching so
Awesome.
many people. You know what I mean? So it's really
I was
helpful to
wondering
join.
why I asked. I was wondering if you had an approach to like atheists and stuff like that, or people that are agnostic, like this side of things, and if like sort of scientific or mathematical approach to like present stuff to like a channel like directed in that way.
I think Quran Talk is the best channel for that, the best media for this. Like, yeah.
I think we got to just hit every channel, right? So it's like we've got a presence on TikTok. We had some in the past on Instagram. I don't know if that's still a thing. And you had the
Actually, I wanted to
podcast
make an
YouTube.
Actually, I wanted to make an announcement. I forgot. I mean, Kay left. If someone could tag him to have him come back, Kay has done an extensive program. He's been working really hard for the Persian speaking audience. In the last month, the number of followers on his YouTube channel, I'm sorry, not YouTube, Instagram channel has increased from 100 to 5,000. And they're making a ton of progress and reaching a lot of people. If you know any Persian speakers, you could send them that channel. I can put it in the chat. I think it's 4,500 members so far.
Name of the channel is Farat Khuda.
Yeah, I put it in VC1 dash chat. That's been very successful. This is one of the few apps or websites that's open in Iran. Instagram. So Discord is blocked in Iran. It's Turkey. If you notice, we have decreased Turkish activity because Discord is blocked in Turkey. We had the world's largest Quran study. It was actually in Turkish, 90 people every week. Now that's blocked.
Why do they block it? Why?
Because it's oppressive. I mean, that's typical of. So they blocked it in Russia and Turkey at the same time.
But why? I didn't hear you. Why did they do that?
I mean, that's what they do. The censorship. That's what dictatorships do, right?
They have their own explanation that they, nonsense. That this is they're trying. West is trying to, interfere in our information, stuff like that.
It's particularly unfortunate for Turkish people because this was their main source of communication, and I've heard that the other platforms that they try to use, it's not effective, it's not useful, and it doesn't work well. People just aren't able to get together this way. But on Discord, we had 90 people join the Turkish voice channel here, and it was fantastic. It was great, and
It was so good. It was so good.
it was fantastic. And now Turkey's blocked it, so now Turkey's out, and Russia's out too. And it's sad because we had just launched a campaign. We're doing the Russian Quran studies, and straight away Russia blocks Discord. And of course, Russia, Turkey, and Iran, all three blocked Discord this year. Just as activities in all three languages were getting more popular. So, anyway, God's doing everything. Brother Roger, you had an announcement. Go ahead, please.
Me? No.
You want to announce your Russian Quran studies?
Yeah, we have a Russian Quran study every Sunday, 10 Pacific time. The only thing I was going to talk about, Navid, with you is that it seems notification is not going for the people who are clicking interest.
I'm sorry, this is Saturday at 10 Pacific time, PM, 10 p.m.
Navid چجوری حل بشه? So it's becoming our Sunday, Saturday 10 Pacific time. I have to look it up.
Yeah, that was last night for us. I saw it. They were on. It was fine.
Yes.
No, but Mila's saying there is no notification coming for them.
Yes, no notification coming for some reason. Yes.
I don't know you, Roger. You have to ask the developers. I'm not a developer here.
Well, I
Can I
will
just
just
say peace be
delete and
upon you
recreate it.
to Sister Mila real quick? I've just missed her so much. She doesn't come on the VC anymore.
Mila
peace be
is on
upon you,
here
sister.
every day for hours.
Yeah, but not in the general. She's always translating, and I don't want to bother her.
You can meet her in the Ukrainian channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah.
peace be upon you, sister. I just miss you. Just wanted to tell you that. That's all.
I just put
We miss you too, Rose.
Yeah, there is so many events, so I cannot get everywhere. But I chose what is more appealing to me. Praise God.
Okay. Any other announcements before we continue?
I have a quick one, God willing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been off, obviously on holiday for 2 weeks, but the meditation session this weekend is going to continue. So I'm trying to remember when it is. So that's in 4 hours, 3 hours, 3 hours from now, God willing. Sorry, I've been MIA, but that is continuing, God willing.
I have a question to ask you.
Me?
Is I'm asking, like, I know my knowledge is not like, it's not really good at it right now, but I found a video of a guy who's just talking shit about who's just blaspheming Russia.
Hey, don't use bad language here, brother. Please don't talk
Yeah,
like that here.
I'm sorry. Yeah, he's you mind if I do like a small refutation? I'm not sure I could really
Yeah,
convince him.
not right now, brother. Not right now.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question in the chat, please. Can someone help me with it? Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're done with the announcements. Then we can go back to doing Quran study. All set? Okay. Brother Ibrahim Abdullahi Wachiko put a question in the chat. He says, Salam, can someone here help help to tell me who is swearing in this verse below, saying, by God, we have sent messengers to communities before you. 1663 says, see what I'm saying, rejected by God, we have sent messengers to communities before you, but the devil adorned their works in their eyes. Consequently, he is now their Lord, and they have incurred a painful retribution. I would think it's just, God himself can swear on himself, right? No problem. Brother Bruno references we, but
That's all, brother.
I don't think the word we is used in this verse, right? Oh, actually, oh yeah, well, we, God and the angels, I'm sorry. Yeah, so it's God and the angels can swear. So God and the angels can swear on God, basically. Does that make sense, brother? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, brother, we
We
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you. Yes, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
did you get your answer, brother Ibrahim?
We hear you.
Yeah, I asked if brother Ibrahim got his answer.
Yeah, I'm with you, brother. Maybe somebody can expand more.
Yeah, does somebody want to expand on this verse for brother Ibrahim, 1663?
What is the verse about? You said 1663
Yeah, it's in the chat.
in the chat.
He's saying, who is swearing by God? And I said, God and the angels can swear by God. So we'll put it in the chat. By God, we have sent messengers to communities before you. So he's saying, who's swearing? And I said, God and the angels. Does somebody have a different answer?
I think that's all you can say to that. I think you gave him exactly the right answer. He wants more, like he wonder more, like more to it, like deep more to it. He don't understand the question or what? I'm lost.
The essence of the question is, why is God swearing by his name?
Because he's God, he can do that.
Oh, he's saying swearing?
Yeah,
Did he say
swearing.
swear?
God can refer to himself in the third person, right?
God can do what?
God can refer to himself in the third person, right?
In the third
So,
person?
third person.
Oh, third person. Okay.
Yeah. So if I say, Navid is coming to you, and Navid is going to give you money, that's me talking about Navid and about myself in the third person. That's okay. God can do that, right? God can speak in the third person. There's no problem with this. It's a narration.
Is it possible that it's Angel Gabriel saying it?
No, because it says we. We
Right.
is,
So Angel Gabriel could include himself and the other angels and God,
yeah.
right?
I mean, yeah. What I already said is God and the angels. It's everybody.
Right, but it would make more sense for the angel Gabriel to say, I swear by God, than for God to say, I swear by God. You see what I mean?
It doesn't say I though. It
Can
says
you read it
we.
again? Because I'm away from my computer. Can you
Yeah,
read
it
it?
said. Yeah, it's in the chat. 1663. By God, we have sent messengers to communities before you.
Right, so angel Gabriel couldn't have said that?
Well, it's we, so it can't just be Angel Gabriel.
Right, he's referring to himself and to God and the other angels.
Right. So then that's everyone talking.
Okay.
So
I got you.
God swearing by his name, maybe it's telling us this for us to know the significance of him being the authority, being the one in charge, being the one in control, that he wants us to know how great he is. Maybe something like that. Or what do you think? God swearing by himself, he wants us to know
Yeah, definitely.
significance.
Definitely,
Yeah.
brother. But specifically, why God reference can swear to himself? Because he just can. He can speak in the third person. But yeah, I mean, he's emphasizing the gravity. But for example, Jamil put the verse in the chat. Never indeed by your Lord. So God is swearing on himself. Never indeed by your Lord. They are not believers unless they come to you to judge in their disputes. Then find no hesitation in their hearts whatsoever in accepting your judgment. They must submit a total submission. So God is emphasizing emphasizing the significance of what he's saying here to give you confidence. Then you don't have doubts. You're not unsure, right? You can know that God is saying, don't worry, they're not believers. They look like believers, but they're not believers. And if you have doubt about it, God is swearing on it to make it even more firm. So you can feel more confident in your position that God is saying if they don't come to the messenger to settle the disputes, they are just not believers, period. You
Yeah,
understand?
that's the way I see it. Maybe God is calling us to our attention to believe in him more, that yes, he has sent messengers, you know, something like that. Yeah.
I think it's
He,
more to do with
he
authority,
wants
right?
us to know.
For example, if I were to swear, right, the highest swearing you could have is by God, right? By God, this is the truth, whatever it is. I'm trying to emphasize the point. That's true.
I have a swearing higher than that.
By everything you see and you don't see.
Yes.
Could it
How can that be
also
higher than God,
be?
brother?
Well,
Nothing.
that
Even the.
includes God. That includes God.
What do you mean?
Everything you
Maybe.
see and don't see includes God. So that's the highest possible swearing in the Quran. That's in
Yeah,
chapter
but
69.
But the
Verse,
word everything is it regards things. Everything,
excuse
not
me?
everyone.
Everything includes everyone.
I don't.
I,
Okay,
I wouldn't
maybe
go
you're
that
right.
far. But either way, the point of this by God thing is that when God is swearing, he's swearing by the highest authority, which is himself, right? Why would he swear
Correct.
by something weaker?
Correct. And this is open session of the Quran study. Anyone can ask any questions about any topic they like regarding any issue or any aspect of the religion or question or anything. Please, you can type your question in VC1 chat, or you can just unmute and ask your question directly.
Brother Douglas, you wanted to say something. Can you contribute, please?
Yes, I wanted to say the phrase by God could just be emphasizing that this is by God's decree. This is his system. If that verse were to read, if we were to take out of that verse by God, which is Tallah in Arabic, it would only read we have sent, right? But God is emphasizing that he is omnipotent, he's in control, and it is God and his angels. This is an emphasis that this is from God. It is from God, and God decrees that Satan becomes the Lord and master of those who reject his revelations and his guidance. Thank you.
That sounds plausible to me. So by God as a swear, as a swearing to acknowledge authority, I agree. I agree that's possible, and I also believe what Brother Douglas just said, that by God's decree, that's also authority, but it's different. But I think that's also plausible.
I'd like to repeat what I think is, as we can see, is very important in the verse. God says, consequently, he is now their Lord, meaning Satan. This is by God's decree. God, this is his system. These individuals now, their Lord is Satan. The messengers and the angels don't do this. God is the one who curses or seals them to the extent that Satan becomes their Lord. Thank you.
I'd like to mention that the word by, so by God, is not necessarily a swear. If it says, I swear by God, that would be, but just by God, the meaning of the word by is going to be, like in proximity to, into the vicinity of, through or through a medium, in the direction of, during the course of, not later than, through the agency, which this applies probably, born or begot, sired
Brother
or
Joe.
born.
Yeah,
With
this
the
is
witness.
specifically a swearing in the Arabic language. This is Tallahi, same as Wallahi, same as Billahi. These are all specifically swearing in Arabic.
Can I just give an example? I put it in VC1 chat. Chapter 72, chapter 74, verse 32. It says, absolutely, I swear by the moon. And the I swear is in parentheses because the literal says absolutely by the moon. But whenever you say something like that, like by the moon or by the sun or whatever, it is automatically a swear. And that's why the messenger recognized this and put I swear in the parentheses. And this is in reference to God swearing on the code 19. I swear by the moon, by the night as it passes, and the morning as it shines. This is one of the great miracles. What are you going to say, Jamil?
Nothing. I was just clarifying that this is actually a swearing article prefixed to the name of God. So yeah, whenever you see ta or wa before God in Arabic, it's always indicating a swear.
Today.
Anyone else have any other questions or comments I want to make regarding any of the topics or verses from the Quran?
I'd love to bring up here. I'll throw it in the chat. It's in. I just did a search and it was in two different verses. This statement of the creation of the heavens and the earth truthfully. So 673. He is the one who created the heavens and the earth truthfully. And God willing, I'll put the other one. 2944. 29. Did I say 29? All right.
So I was just going to announce in 19 minutes, I'm supposed to host the event explaining Code 19. I forgot to announce that. I'm so sorry. I put the link for that in the chat. It's going to be here in VC1-chat. Is it at 2 o'clock? I thought it was just right after I could just start it right after the Quran study. I don't need to wait another half hour. Go, link. Go ahead. You can read the verse. Sorry, 2944.
All good. Did we want to stay on this topic? I know Brother Jamil just posted. I did not mean to take us away. I just saw. I sensed that extended silence as an opportunity to bring something else up. But we can stay on this topic here, Brother Jamil, if you want to explain what you've shared here.
Oh no, just for anyone who's interested, this is just additional information on what we were just talking about. We can move forward to another topic.
Right on, Roger
Sorry,
that.
Brother Naveed. I think what happened was I created that event for you and I did it at my time instead of your time. So that's what happened. Sorry about that.
God bless you, Rose. I don't think so because we're an hour different. So that would be, if it was my time, it would be during our study, right? But it's okay. God bless you.
Oh, possibly. I don't know. I messed something up.
It's
I
okay.
apologize.
It's okay. You're fine. I'll just start it right after the study, don't worry. But you can keep talking, Bruno. I appreciate your insights.
Peace be upon you. So I would love to ask about he is the one who created the heavens and the earth truthfully. And then in 2944, God created the heavens and the earth truthfully. This provides a sufficient proof for the believers. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what that means to create it truthfully. Is the heavens, the universes, are they full of truth? And what does that mean? And then we've talked about the atoms and all of the universe kind of being submitted to God, God being capital T truth. So I'd love to just open it up there and see what God gives us.
Yeah, I'll give a stab at it. It actually has to do with a conversation we had earlier this week. It was me, myself, and a couple other of us were talking with an atheist. This concept of truth, right? So think of this: if I say that pi, right, the perimeter divided by the diameter is 3.14, that's a true statement. But if I tell you that, if I say pi is actually, let me see, 3.1415926535, right? That's a more accurate statement, right? Meaning 3.14, it's not that it's wrong, it's not fully, it doesn't contain everything. But when you look at the aspect of the creation of the heavens and the earth. This is the way, again, I guarantee there's other interpretations. But the way I see it is when you look at the precision that was necessary in the creation of the heavens and the earth, this is something that God is swearing by, that he's saying that, yes, truthfully. So two of the parameters, these are just, there's a whole slew of them. They're known as basically the fine tuning of the universe in its creation. Meaning that if any of these parameters were off by the slightest bit, there would be no universe. It's not like, oh, we wouldn't have life, evolve. It would be in a different form or something like that. It's like, no, there would be no universe. And these are all constants that were made at the initiation of the Big Bang. So, for instance, the force of gravity, it's fine-tuned to 1 part to the 10 to the 60th. That's 0.0000060 zeros 1, meaning that if it's more than that or less than that level of accuracy, the gravity would either be too strong and the universe would collapse upon itself, or it'd be too weak and you'd never have the formation of stars and planets. There's a whole number of this, the strong and weak nuclear force, the universal constant. There's one, this one is the most kind of profound. It's the amount of entropy the universe must have had at initiation, which is called Penrose's number. And this, the amount of entropy is so fine tuned that it's 10 to the 10 to the 123. Meaning that if it's off by, and think of this, if every atom was a 0, this number would still be bigger than that. That's how, in the observable universe, this is how big this number is. That if it was off by 1 part by 10 to the 10 to the 123, there would be no universe, right? That the fine tuning of entropy has to be so precise that if you increased it even the slightest bit by 1 part in 10 to the 10 to the 123, there would be no universe. It's not like, oh, the universe would just be different. It's like, no, that's the amount of tolerance that is permissible in order to have a universe. When God says that he created the heavens and the earth truthfully, I think this is just a testament to the level of sophistication and precision in God's creation. Right? Because again, if I say, hey, the gravitational constant is 6.023 times 10 to the minus 23, it's like, well, actually, there's a whole slew of decimals after that if you negate, you actually don't have the right universal constant. And when God did his creation, he accounted for all that. That's the level of truth in that statement. That's the way I understand it. I don't know if anyone wants to add more to it.
Yeah, dude. This reminded me of just like Rashad's translation. If you compare it to other English translations, it's like degrees of accuracy is like what we're looking for. And whenever we were doing our Quran talk earlier, I pulled up like 5 different books or 4 different books, including Rashad's. And I mean, this is just anecdotal, but just my subjective experience. But I found Rashad's clearer, like in terms in the English language. So it seems like just things are doing that. Like you said, you could do 3.14, you get pi, but then the degrees of accuracy to which things go, like just makes the connection more clear, I guess. And I don't know, you like reiterating this was just making me think of me reading the 4 different translations.
I think there's something very interesting, like the idea of, so because even in verse let me go back to 673, so after that, so I'll read it over. He is the one who created the heavens and the earth truthfully. Whenever he says be, it is. His word is the absolute truth. And I'll stop there. It keeps going. So it is the absolute truth. It's a very interesting concept, right? So we're talking about the depth of truth, like absolute truth. And then we've talked about Brother Peter, I believe. Is that right?
Correct.
Brother Peter, right? Okay, right on. Brother Peter brought up like things like pi, like these numbers that I think are called irrational, and that they never end. Like the depth of detail is ongoing. It's beyond, maybe I could say, our dimension. So the idea that absolute truth was used to create this universe, and when we use math, even then, like we cannot it's almost like absolute truth is so high, maybe. God being capital T, absolute truth. That's interesting. And then the idea of the Quran, the words absolute truth do come up in the Quran about messaging in the Quran. So let me see. Surah 69, it's brought up. We need the context. I'll just copy paste it all of you if you guys don't mind. So 69:51, it is the absolute truth. It has context before it, so it isn't saying the Quran itself, I think, is the absolute truth. It's this piece of the message is the absolute truth. And I bring this up to what brother, I think, Bean just brought up, the idea of none can grasp it but the sincere, and like the depth of right, the depth of detail towards truth. I think I see what Brother Bean is talking about with none can grasp it but the sincere, absoluteness, and the depth of the detail of truth. And then also what Brother Peter's bringing up with the universe and its depth, such that irrational numbers are visible to us.
I wanted to mention also, dude, since you brought this topic up, and I forgot the brother's name that brought up bees earlier. How we were talking about everything glorify him, and bees are doing what they're doing, honey and such. It made me think, because I read something a while back, the electromagnetic spectrum. It goes from 10 to the minus 16th or so to like 10 to the 24th power, which is we stay in the visible spectrum, right? That's how we get purple, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red, and the colors of the rainbow and our what we can visibly see. But there's a huge range, and that it's sort of the units are by wavelength and nanometers and stuff to measure this. But it goes way from gamma rays to radio waves, and that range is huge, 10 to the negative 16th to 10 to the 24th power. And for bees specifically, I remember reading this a while back, that if they did experiments in, I think, the 50s, and whenever you remove the wavelength spectrum of blue light, the bees fail to pollinate flower to flower. And it's they do this thing called a waggle dance. So when bees are going in there's like a pattern in which they travel, and they swerve to side, and there's like actually trajectory that they follow. And whenever you remove blue light, they stop. They're unable to do this waggle dance, and then they're unable to pollinate from flower to flower. And this, in the context of 10 to the negative 16th power to 10 to the 24th power, this blue light, I think it's like 470 to 510 nanometers. Not very much in the total context of the electromagnetic spectrum, but you remove this little bit and bees can't pollinate. So it's just like, yeah, just made me think of that.
It's actually beyond just bees. For photosynthesis, same. There's a thin layer of light spectrum where is necessary. It's not too much or too little energy in order to conduct photosynthesis. And if you use that same spectrum as far as the entire light spectrum, from gamma rays all the way to radio waves, the delta between that is on par as if you stack playing cards from Earth to the next closest galaxy, which is the Andromeda galaxy, which is about 2.5 million light years away. So you have a stack of playing cards between Earth and the Andromeda galaxy. So visualize that, 2.5 million light years. Then there's a small band about the size of a few centimeters, and that's the light spectrum that basically we have visible light. And then within that light spectrum, it's like pulling one card out is on par to the spectrum necessary for photosynthesis or for this bee pollination process. When you think about the entire gamut of the light spectrum, it's that finely tuned. And it's not like, oh, it would have just had different physics. Like, no, it doesn't operate if you increase or decrease the light spectrum beyond that band.
SubhanAllah. That's a lot of cards. It makes me want to internet, you can find pictures like cartoons or whatever. You just like put it in context. You have like all these playing cards going to like a different galaxy. And then or like compared to like size of the earth or the sun, like some little grain of sand, like put it in like corresponding, context like that.
Yeah, when you visualize it in that context, like saying, "Hey, we're going to pull one atom out of all the atoms in the observable universe," then your brain starts grasping of just how astronomically low probability this is. Seeing things in those visuals, it's always it makes you appreciative. The other one is like the memory density of DNA. Right? You contemplate you have some 3 trillion cells in your body, 300 trillion, whatever. But each one has the entire genetic makeup of an entire human being, and you're talking about the width of atoms at that point. And if you had a tablespoon of DNA, just say pure DNA, that has enough density to contain all the communication that's ever happened in the history of the Earth. That's fascinating. Like, you think about all the books that every human being has ever written, all the letters, the memos, the essays. You take all that information, you could pack it into 1 tablespoon of DNA.
Yeah, I think someone made a while back. I think it was in a classroom I was taking. I was in, and still today we have nothing that is on par how DNA condenses and is packaged in our body and the chromosome and all this. Like, it's the most efficient kind of packaging. Like, if FedEx or UPS had this, they could go around our solar system or something. I don't know. Like, it's like insane. But also another thing that I've it's been in my mind for some time that today made me think of is birds. How they kind of have this signal to go like south and for the winter. I think it happens sometime around fall, and they just get this little instinct to start flying south. And they discovered a protein in the brain of birds. It's actually synced with the like electromagnetic field of Earth and the poles. And so whenever the Earth's orientation in the fall, it has a certain orientation about its axis, and the magnetic poles are situated in a certain place. And whenever that point happens, where the Earth's position is right in that time in fall, the protein in the bird of the brain also does a conformational shift to match this electromagnetic signature for the Earth, and they get the signal to fly south for the winter.
Yeah, that's one of the actual additional proofs of God, is that somehow this bird, one of the most miraculous kind of migrations, I think it's from Alaska to Hawaii. Hawaii's one of the most remote islands in the entire globe, and somehow this bird knows that it can migrate to this island. The question is how. It packs on just enough energy in order to be able to make that trip, not too much, not too little, and it makes it once in its life. So no one comes back and says, "Hey guys, you got to do this migration." And it's part of their innate knowledge that there is this place called Hawaii that they fly to, and it's like it's saying that if you have an innate knowledge for something, actually a sign that that thing exists. You know, I have an innate knowledge when, you know, any child is born for food, for water, for love, for touch. You know, these are things that are innate to it. If you know, the every culture has an innate knowledge of God, that there is a hereafter. You know, to think that there isn't such a thing just goes against common sense of that.
Yeah, it's sorry, go ahead, Navid.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna announce the event starting, but you can finish whatever you're saying.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring out. There's like cartoons. You see like things like cats talking to each other, or like some birds talking to each other. It's like, oh, what are you doing this afternoon? It's so funny how we always anthropomorphize things, but things are just like submitting. Like they're not thinking about how to pack this energy on or do the right thing. Oh, I need to prepare to go there, to go south for the winter. They're just, it's all synchronized and they just
I
do
don't
it.
think I don't think the devil whispers to them. So I wonder, the inspiration they get or their brains, it is free of that. So that must be wonderful. It must be good. Or not saying that in the absolute. Happy to hear other thoughts.
God bless you. I started the event. I want to just jump right into it if that's okay. Let me just tag people. The event too. Okay. Okay. All right. Peace be upon you guys. So I was tasked with hosting this event on Code 19, which I think is really important in our discussions and debates. Basically, let me just first emphasize how important Code 19 is in the whole equation, right? So basically, what do we have at stake here? Pretty much for every argument that we have on any verse or any concept or everything, it's all going to go back to Code 19. And I can explain why, right? Because at the end of the day, someone's going to say, why did you translate this verse this way? And we can make all the linguistic arguments, this and that, and someone's going to dispute it. But really, we're going to say, at the end of the day, sorry, somebody's trying to talk. Somebody's unmuted. If you could just mute yourself so we can have smooth discussion. Welcome, everybody who joined. So today's discussion is about the Code 19, why it's so important, and why, how can we explain and present it, and present it in the best way. God bless you all for coming. Please feel party welcome. So what we're explaining, the first thing that's being explained is, why is Code 19 so important? So basically, at the end of the day, the difference between us and every other religion on earth is because we have definitive proof from God. If anybody, I hope this event is being recorded, and if anybody wants to take notes, please feel free to do so if you find it beneficial. Code 19 sets itself apart from anything else, from any other religious theory or claim or ideology. That's the foundation. That's the core proof, right? So for any of these debates, you see us, we get into linguistics debates. Let's look at the root word. Let's look at that. Let's look at the history, this and that. These are all great, but at the end of the day, someone can just dispute them. Really, if we're going to say, hey, this is what we believe, why? Ultimately, if they keep pushing, it's going to get to the point where we say, because the messenger said so. Well, how do you know the messenger is legitimate? Because he's backed by God with the ultimate miracle, Code 19. That's it. So the essence of the proof for all the debates is going to come back to Code 19. That's why it's so important to be familiar with this miracle, with the evidence, with the justification, the arguments, and substantiating it. So now that we kind of set the baseline for this, okay, so the question is, well, what is Code 19? You know, and we have to really respect and appreciate the value of this. This is not just a set of, cool patterns in a book. If we present it like this, we're actually doing a disservice to the miracle of God. Code 19 is an observable mathematical design. Okay? It's a structure. So what does that mean? So, for example, if I'm telling you that I'm going to build a house, and I want to build this house in a particular way, for example, based on the measurements of 10. So my walls have to be 10 feet tall. And, whatever hinge has to be 10 inches. And whatever other thing has to be 10 feet by 10 yards by, 10 meters, whatever. Everything's going to be based on 10. And I mention to you that I'm going to have a design based on the number 10. Now I have a deliberate design. There's a deliberate structure here. It's not random. It's not even a set of patterns limited to that. It's a deliberate design. It's a structure that's intentional. This is the essence of Code 19. So in order to establish that, we have to establish the baseline, right? Because in order to establish deliberate design mathematically with laws of probability, the most important thing is to establish what we know as consistent methodology, right? Because anyone can go to any book and pick verses that are 19 letters or 19 words or whatever, and point out 5 or 10 or 20 of them and say, okay, they're the design in the Quran. That's not Code 19. And I see that's presented like that sometimes. The first step when you're presenting Code 19 to anyone, separate from, I guess, identifying that there's a number 19 in the Quran and this kind of thing, is to present the laws of probability, the statistical likelihood. Okay? So, the core of this would go to the Quranic initials. I'm going to put them in the chat, God willing. These are the Quranic initials. They prefix 29 chapters. I think there's 30 occurrences in total, right? Because one chapter has 2 sets of initials. Chapter 42 is Hamim in the first verse, and then the following verse is Ain Sin Qaf. What are we looking at a most basic level? There's 29 chapters that have Quranic initials. And we have 30 tries because there's 30 verses that have Quranic initials. At a most basic level, we are trying to demonstrate consistent methodology. How are you doing this? You take these letters, okay? You take these letters and you count the frequency of these letters within their respective chapters. Out of the 30 attempts, we are claiming 17 outright are just direct multiples of 19. 17 directly are going to be that's our claim. Right? So for example, chapter 2, verse 1 is Aleph Lam Mim. Okay? So we're saying the total number of Aleph and Lam and Mim in this chapter is 9,899. 19 times 521. Okay, so we have 30 attempts. The likelihood of any number randomly being a multiple of 19 is 1 over 19, which is 5%. And please, if anyone has any questions or comments or needs any clarifications at any moment, please stop me and I can stop to address whatever issue you have. Anybody have any questions or comments about everything that's said so far? Okay. So I put a table 4 in the chat. So we're saying chapter 2 starts with ALM or Aleph Lam Mim. 9,899 multiple 19. Chapter 3, same thing, multiple 19. Chapter 29, 30, 31, and 32. These are Aleph Lam Mim chapters, all 6 of them. When I'm presenting code 19, I want to present the most concise, efficient, effective, and easiest presentation of this miracle. But I'm not going to present a chapter that's not easily verifiable like these, with hundreds or thousands of instances of these letters. I will go, God willing, with the most easiest presentable data sets. So instead of going to Aleph Lam Mim, I'm going to go to Qaf, God willing, in chapter 50. That's where I start typically for the letters. So in the letters, what are we saying is happening in chapter 50? We're saying that when you go to chapter 50, okay, this chapter starts with Qaf. We could start it here, put it in the chat. Chapter 50, verse 1. The name of the chapter is Qaf, but it says, it says Qaf and the glorious Quran. Qaf wal Quran Majid. Okay, so look, the image I put in the chat. This chapter is easy. It's 2 pages only, this chapter. 2 pages. Within the 2 pages of this chapter, we're counting the instances of the letter Qaf within this chapter. So we have 57 instances. Every instance of a Qaf has a star next to it. So we have 57 instances of Qaf. Right? Okay. So with the 57 instances, that's 19 times 3. So now, out of the 30 attempts for the initial chapters, we have 1. We've established 1 that is a multiple of 19. So now you can ask ChatGPT. If somebody wants to try, they can. I don't know if I have access to it right now. I haven't used it very often. I have some usage of ChatGPT. Let's see. So I'm asking ChatGPT a question. How many multiples of 19 should I expect from 30 random numbers? Okay? This is what I just asked ChatGPT 4.0 mini. Okay, let me explain this to you. This is really important. So I'm going to put the screenshot, God willing, of ChatGPT's response to my question, just to reiterate what the issue at hand is. Okay. So I asked ChatGPT, how many multiples of 19 should I expect from 30 random numbers? And that's what we have. How do we generate 30 random numbers? So there's 29 chapters that are prefixed with Quranic initials. Okay? One of these chapters has 2 verses on Quranic initials. That's chapter 42 with Ha Mim and Ain Sin Qaf. Now, we are counting we're looking at the frequency of the count of these letters within each chapter on an individual basis. In order to establish defiance of laws of probability, you have to establish consistent methodology. Consistent methodology is established by showing the same method applied over and over again. So this is what we're doing now. So we have 30 random numbers generated in this way. And I asked ChatGPT, how many multiples of 19 should I expect from 30 random numbers? And this is GPT's response. To estimate how many multiples of 19 you might expect from 30 random numbers, you can start by calculating the probability of a random number being a multiple of 19. Since the multiples of 19 are spaced evenly, 19, 38, 57, the probability of a randomly chosen number being a multiple of 19 is 1 over 19, assuming a uniform distribution of random numbers. For 30 random numbers, you can use the expected value calculation. Expected multiples of 19 equal 30 times 1 over 19, which is approximately 1.58. So you should expect about 1 to 2 multiples of 19 among 30 random numbers. So now I'm having a conversation with someone trying to explain code 19 and why it's significant. And they're saying, well, this is just, you're cherry picking, or it's not real, or whatever. And I said, look, I have 30 random numbers, and I should expect 1 or 2 multiples of 19. So now let's go in there. So we did Qaf. Okay, we did Qaf. Now I fulfilled 1. So now we move to the next one. We're starting with the easiest ones. So now we start with the next one. The next one is Yasin, chapter 36, verse 1. Yasin, which we write as YS. Right? Yasin. Okay. So how many times does Ya and Sin occur in this chapter? It's going to be 285, which is 19 times 15. So now I've reached 2. Out of the 30 random numbers that ChatGPT has calculated that I should expect, I've reached 2 of them. So it's telling me you can expect 1 or 2 to be multiples of 19 out of 30 random numbers. Okay, so now let's keep going. So another batch, or another set. 42, 2, Ain Sin Qaf. Easy one. We just look at the same way. Consistent methodology. It's very important to have consistent methodology. We're looking at the occurrence of these letters within a given chapter. So now in chapter 42, we're counting the occurrence of Ain Sin Qaf. Okay, Ain Sin Qaf occurs in chapter 42 209 times, which is 19 times 11. So now we're at 3 occurrences. And someone can argue, well, okay, ChatGPTs, you should expect 1 or 2, but you're at 3. So it's within the margin of expected, outcome. All right, fine. So then we move to another chapter, chapter 19. Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad. In this chapter, we use the same system. We count 798 occurrences of these letters within this chapter. That's a multiple of 19. 19 times 42. So now we're at 4 multiples of 19 out of the 30 random numbers. We're getting out of what's expected within the laws of probability. A good example of this is if you flip a coin 1,000 times and then you get heads, you should expect to get heads 50% of the time. Let's say you get heads 500 times. Okay, we expect that. What if I get it 550 times? Yeah, that's possible. What about 600 times? It's getting a little questionable. How about 700 times? Okay, something's going on. 800 times. Yeah, there's definitely something rigged with this coin. Either there's a miracle happening or it's rigged. Now, do you understand how I don't need all 1,000 coin flips to be heads to notice something is out of the ordinary, something's unusual? This is something that comes up all the time. They say, why isn't everything in the same consistent fashion? It doesn't need to be. That's not the threshold that's being, that's not what's required here. All we need to demonstrate is that it exceeds by a significant margin or statistical significance the laws of probability. So if I demonstrate that my coin is flipping 700 times heads and 300 times tails out of 1,000 flips, there's something serious going on here. This is not expected outcome. Now we're heading in that direction with the Quranic initials. So we established four easy ascertainable multiples of 19, right? And we can go further, right? Let's look at another one. Okay, so now we're getting out. We're starting to get outside of the realm of the laws of probability. The other example to give, is noon. Now this is where they can try to dispute, right? So noon prefixes chapter 68, 133. I'm sorry. Noon is the prefix for chapter 68, the first verse, and it occurs in this chapter 133 times, which is 19 times 7. They may or may not grant you this because noon in all the Quran versions outside of what we use is written as just one letter, noon. But we can make the argument that it should be noon while noon because this is a self-correcting code, and also the Quran uses the example in 2187 of Jonah, the one with the N in his name, noon, and it's spelled out for this letter, noon while noon. Now, what's interesting is in this chapter, the only prophet that's referenced is Jonah in chapter 68. That's in 68:48. It says, "You shall steadfastly persevere in carrying out the commands of your Lord. Do not be like Jonah, who called from inside the fish." So he's referenced. That's the only prophet referenced here. And it's ironic that he's known in 2187 as Dhanun. Jonah, the one with the N in his name, abandoned his mission in protest, thinking that we could not control him. He ended up imploring from the darkness of the fish's belly. And there are recitations, as the research has shown, that show this noon as understood as noon while noon. The additional resources put in the chat for the Quran Talk blog article. So If they grant noon while noon, great. If not, then we can get to this point where we're saying, look, what we're starting to see is a deliberate design here. ChatGPT says 1 or 2, we have 4. If you grant noon, that's 5. Then we can get into other chapters. If they're willing to play ball, then we can open up the Aleph chapters. Right? Now, these are tricky because Aleph is difficult to count. But by God's leave, praise God, Brother Peter, he has done a lot of research in presenting these for us. So what I use for the initial counts of Aleph is the digitalized initial counts. I'll have to put it in the chat right now. So these are the Aleph chapters. I believe in total are there 12 Aleph chapters? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 13 Aleph chapters. We can visually present these counts. So for example, you go to, let's see, Aleph Lam Ra. Just actually let's do one that's just easy. It's just one time. Aleph Lam Mim Ra. It's just one surah, one chapter, 13. Consistent methodology. I think of what you got from Say the Rejected. Aleph Lam Mim Ra. These letters are proofs of this scripture. What is revealed to you from your Lord is the truth, but most people do not believe. We're just counting these letters within this chapter. And they occur a total of 1,482 times, which is 19 times 78. Okay? Right? So if someone grants the Aleph chapters, we're at 17 out of 30 random numbers. That's extremely unlikely. That's not going to happen. That it pretty much establishes deliberate design already. We don't even need 17. I'm happy with 5 even. 5 would already satisfy beyond probability. The fact that the Quran mentions, and this is an important piece to point out for people, in chapter 74, verse 30, it says, Alayha tisadasha, over it is 19. So 19 is referenced in relation to a hidden secret of the Quran. And now we are observing a mathematical book. Once we establish the existence of a deliberate design in the Quran, then the other aspects of Code 19 come into play. Because now we are expecting multiples of 19. So it makes sense, it's expected, it's reasonable to assume that other aspects of the Quran are also going to be multiples of 19. For example, the first revelation of the Quran was the first 5 verses in chapter 96. This is 19 words. The last revelation of the Quran is the chapter 110. I believe it's also 19 words. The first chapter revealed, 96, is 19 verses, and it's 19 chapters from the end of the Quran. The first verse of most of the chapters in the Quran, almost all of them, is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's 19 letters. And I try to point out the most basic, non-disputed aspects. So I pick from the simple facts. 76 letters of the first revelation is 19 times 4. The total letters of this first chapter revealed is 304, 19 times 16. The first verse of the last chapter revealed is 19 letters. Now, because the topic of the false verses comes up a lot, you can evade this by avoiding giving facts that are going to be dependent on the removal of the false verses. So, for example, all the Quranic initials that I gave, they're all factual, independent of the false verses. Right? The first revelation is 19 verses. It just is. That's what it's known and accepted. The only aspect of chapter 96 that they may dispute, and they do, is the last, the second to last word there, the second to last word in the first revelation is malam, and they try to argue that malam is 2 words instead of 1, giving it 20 words for the first revelation. And a good article on this is presented by Peter in VC1-chat, addressing this with additional sources, showing that their own sources recognized malam as 1 word. So now we're treading in a way to not trigger the false verses, because if I say the Quran is 6,346 verses, then they'll say, well, you're removing the 2 false verses. It should be 48, and that's not a multiple 19. So I need to be prepared. If I want to say one of these facts, I need to be prepared to have a conversation about the 2 false verses. That's just how this game goes. You either avoid giving facts that are going to trigger that, or if you do, you come full force gung ho and you're ready to go on the 2 false verses. And just quickly on the 2 false verses, you lay it out straight away. If it comes to it, you say, look, the 2 false verses violate the Quran, or actually they have problems in the following dimensions. There's 7 dimensions to the 2 false verses, right? Number 1 and most important is mathematical, then historical problems, then linguistical, then logical, then contextual, then stylistical, then geographical. And we could demonstrate each of these. We can get into the aspect of the 2 false verses, right? But that's a whole conversation on its own, and it might not be fully beneficial to go in that direction. So you just focus on establishing code 19 exists. I gave a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions or comments at this moment in time before I continue? And I hope this is being recorded. Can somebody confirm that they're recording this presentation? Okay, great. God bless you. Okay, so that gets us diverting into the 2 false verses. But if we don't go in that direction, we just keep chugging along. We keep going. We say, okay, we have the Quranic initials. Consistent methodology has now been established. Right? Because we're not going to arbitrary different things. We're not picking something from here, something from there. No, these initials already existed. The numbers chosen, we're just going through it brute force, applying the same methodology. for all these chapters. And we're saying 17 out of 30 are straight multiples of 19. That's beyond probability. That already establishes deliberate design. So now what else can we get from this code? And you just keep going. And you kind of test the waters and see what they're willing to recognize. If they're okay with, the two verses, then you just keep chugging along. Let's see. Let me just mentally recap real quick. So we established the design in the Quran, and now it's just a matter of if it's someone that's a Muslim, then they already accept the Quran's from God, so then they have to accept that it's a miracle. But if it's a non-Muslim, then we'll argue that this is within the ability of Muhammad. So then it's a matter of complexity. How complex does it have to get to not be from human or a group of humans? But then we add more layers to it. So we can say, hey, there is a threshold of human capacity when it comes to designing a structure book based on number 19. I can make a book based on number 19. It can have 19 chapters, and every chapter can have 19 verses. All that's going to show you is that I know how to count. That's not a superhuman design. It's going to show you that I intentionally made it this way. Okay? So now that we establish a numerical design exists, now we have to present the exceeding of human ability. So 2698 is the total frequency of the word God, the most important word in this book. 2698, which is 19 times 142. That's a multiple of 19. An additional layer to this is the fact that you can add the verse numbers of the cumulative sum for the verses where the word God occurs. And you get 118,123. And that's a multiple of 19. Those two facts alone already exceed any human's ability in 7th century 7th century Arabia. Nobody could do that. Just those two facts alone. And for a reference, they had 20 college-educated individuals try to just count the word God, and they had different numbers. Just counting. This is structuring and using them in a sentence, and the verse numbers did not exist. So that's another thing that needs to be emphasized, is that numerals did not exist in the Arabian Peninsula at the time of the Quran. They had numerical values in the form of the letters of the alphabet representing values. So this is a good point to mention. These are known as geometrical values or abjad system. Okay. So that means that these chapter numbers and verse numbers didn't exist. They were separated by dots, but they didn't have numbered verses. The numbers came at least a couple hundred years later. So this concept of adding those verses to do some kind of calculation didn't exist. Here I'm presenting the earliest manuscript of the Quran that we have, that we know with carbon dating. This is the Birmingham manuscript. As you can see, without even knowing Arabic, you can see how the verses are separated in the same way that our verses are separated today. They're just not numbered. They're separated by 4 or 5 dots. Okay, so we have established a deliberate design of the number 19 in the Quran. We have established that it defies laws of probability. It's in a fashion that should not be expected within a random distribution of numbers and values. Now we're establishing that it's breaking the upper threshold of human capacity at that time. I mean, I would argue that it breaks the capacity at this time too, even now, even with supercomputers, we can't achieve it. But let's just, for sake of argument, focus on 7th century Arabs. Okay. No human being or beings could have done this. Okay. So this now establishes, with consistent methodology, code 19 in the Quran. And one thing that I use, the question becomes, what is the function of code 19? These are the functions that I've identified at a general concept. So code 19 does the following. Number 1, it proves God, existence of God. Number 1, it proves the Quran is from God. Number 3, that's number 2. Number 3, it proves the preservation of the Quran, identifies the correct version of the Quran. Number 4, it verifies the new messenger. Number 5, it confirms the practices of submission. We're claiming there's 4 practices of submission. It confirms them. Number 6, it provides the right understanding of the Quran. So do you see how we came full circle? At the beginning of this conversation, the discussion was, how do you justify a particular translation of a verse? And we said, look, we can make linguistic arguments. We have excellent linguistic arguments. We can look at the Arabic, we can look at root words, we can do a lot. But ultimately, everything as a whole is proven because of the solid evidence and the validity of God's messenger of the covenant as having divine authority to provide us the correct representation of the Quran, the correct conclusions of the Quran. And the proof for that ultimately is the ultimate miracle, code 19. I think that's the presentation for now. I can answer any questions anyone has. God willing.
I have a question. Can you hear me? Peace.
Yeah, peace to you, Pony. Go ahead. What's your question?
So a lot of these lives that I follow, whenever you mention these miracles, it doesn't seem to register, right? Like, why is that? And how do we maybe combat that?
Some people are just blocked, brother. They're not able to see God's signs or miracles. They're deaf, dumb, and blind to them. So code 19, well, God tells us about code 19 in chapter 74, all of chapter 74, but in verse 30 and 31, he mentions that one of the things that's going to happen is that either it increases their faith or convinces them that the Quran's from God, or they're just disturbed. And so we can look at these 2 verses, 74, 30, and 31. Over it is 19. We appointed angels to be guardians of hell And we assign their numbers. 19. 1. To disturb the disbelievers. 2. To convince the Christians and Jews that this is a divine scripture. 3. To strengthen the faith of the faithful. 4. To remove all traces of doubt from the hearts of the Christians, Jews, as well as the believers. And 5. To expose those who harbor doubt in their hearts and the disbelievers. They will say, what did God mean by this allegory? Okay. So one or more of these 5 functions is going to be on a particular individual who's exposed to this information. Most people fall in category 1. They're just disturbed. They're just going to cope. Oh, the people were just smart. Oh, no, this is just a coincidence. Anyone can do this. Or the letters don't add up to 19. Bismillah is not 19 letters. It's all cope. It's disturbed. They're disturbed. By giving these answers, they're just disturbed.
No, I think my question more is on the fact that they didn't even register the message, right? They're not even disturbed because they don't register that this is highly improbable.
Yeah, because they don't comprehend it, brother.
What can we do?
There's nothing to do. Like, what do we do? I mean, there's nothing to do with that person. You can just use them as a punching
What
bag and
what
use that.
can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what we can do. You use the person as a punching bag and just keep hammering the point. So we have an audience. If I have 30 people, I'm going to try to utilize the existence of that person and demonstrate to those 29 other people how obvious it is, how clearly this person is missing clear proofs, clear evidences. So we have to simplify it as much as possible, utilize this moment in our favor, and just demonstrate how easy it is and how they just don't understand.
Yeah, this is clearly a miracle. Nobody can make this up. Like, how many people, so many generations had the Quran and they counted the surahs and how many ayahs. They couldn't figure out code 19. So that's why I'm saying only God sent him to know the code 19 to figure it out. Yeah. And I'm sure he's not the first physicist to pick up the Quran too. So that's why he's a miracle.
Okay, any other questions for me about the code 19?
I got a question.
Yeah,
How do
what's
you
up?
define a miracle?
Personally, I have my own kind of understanding of it, but I define as a miracle as an event that I can only attribute to God and
And
supernatural.
for me, miracle is like when we see like the story of Jesus, like he walked on water, or he let the blind see, he healed the sick, he brought the dead to life. Like when we see that, it's like, oh, okay, that's a miracle. But we also see miracles in our everyday life, like, okay, this person found a cure to cancer, or this person did something, like, it's like, wow. So to me, a miracle is something like
So,
like a phenomenon that like nobody ever done before, and it's just like beyond our human capabilities.
Something like impossible, like for example, seeing an Arab believing in code 19.
I'd like, I sent to Naveed what I call kind of like an archaic presentation of the 19 code. In the beginning, I went into Webster's dictionary and defined a coincidence and a miracle and chance. In other words, I presented an objective definition of what each of these are, as, so to speak, a preface to what Naveed went over in terms of presenting attributes of the code. That's a very important question. That we begin with an objective definition of what a miracle is, what does coincidence mean? And have you this? What
That's
does
the word
fact?
I was, yeah, that's the word I was looking for, like a coincidence, like a natural phenomenon. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Please, if I
But this
could.
is important to point these out in a mean way so that people they can choose to do so, but they can't use their own subjective opinion of what a miracle is or a coincidence or what facts actually constitute. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to address the question asked. So that question asked was, "What's a miracle?" For me, it's something attributable to God only. That's my understanding of this. Um, so if I witness something that does not occur in ordinary affairs, right? It's not going to happen. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I participated in a lottery. Well, someone has to win the lottery, and it happens to be me. But if the same person wins the lottery 10 times out of a million people, then either it's rigged or it's supernatural by God. That's it. There's no other explanation. That's how I see it. So I attribute the miracle to God.
So your definition of miracle is only from God, right?
That's mine. Yeah, I don't believe other entities can do miracles. Only God can do miracles.
Yeah.
So actually, there's a really good
And I believe
article on this.
God uses people to do miracles.
Laith, we're doing a recorded session. After we're done, you can participate in a discussion on this. If Atif or someone can share an article, it's a 4-part series on Quran talk about the anatomy of a miracle. If you could post that article, I would appreciate it. Or one of them, the
God,
first one.
yeah,
Yeah.
God willing, I can.
Right. Does that answer your question, Peter? I'm sorry if I didn't do a great job answering your question.
No, praise God. I think it's worth discussing because that's one of the questions that comes up. They say, "Well, how is this a miracle?" Right? And then we get into the discussion regarding, okay, what constitutes. So just having that kind of foundation, I think it's a good leeway into the claims that are being made. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this person's a perfect example, right? So he's saying the first verse of the Quran doesn't have 19 letters. It has more than 20. So here you go, Mr. Saeed. That's it, right?
Well, when someone just redefines reality, you just stand back and say, right, this is a punching bag.
Yeah. So let's address what Synth put in the chat. He says, what is the threshold to determine it's a miracle? Because that seems highly subjective. No, it's actually a mathematical analysis. So I gave the example of coin flipping, right? If we flip a coin 1,000 times and we get 800 heads, that's not subjectively or arbitrary. That's just statistically not going to happen, right? If I can
Right.
ask, yeah, go ahead.
Navid, what you're saying using that flip coin example, that's not coincidence. That's not accident. That's simply an example, a concrete physical example of what is not a coincidence. I think it's important that this is clarified in the initial presentation. Clearly, what is a coincidence, miracle by God, other complementary definition, that these things are put forward so as to neutralize, not necessarily stop, these bogus arguments and subjective opinions in terms of reactions to the code? Thank you.
Yeah,
And
God bless you.
add to
Yeah,
brother.
what's your question, Hafsa?
No, I'm just gonna add to brother Douglas. He explained it well. Coincidence is something like every human being can do. Like, for example, I see somebody like do something. I'm like, oh wow, what a coincidence, right? You guys heard that before? Like when somebody says, "What a coincidence." So it's just like, what a coincidence you happen to be there, or what a coincidence you did that, right? So I think that's just something within our own human capabilities. But for me, like a miracle would be like something like only God can do for the person. And I know they use this word miracle a lot, like, wow, what a miracle, like you did that. But
Yeah, we're
miracles,
not talking about, but we're not talking about subjective miracle where it's like, oh, I have cancer, and then it just kind of went away.
yeah. Well, if
Well,
it went
I'm not talking
away,
about a
cancer,
personal miracle. I'm talking about
yeah.
a measurable, objective miracle for everyone to witness. That's from God. Now, obviously, if you get cured from cancer, that's God curing you too. But we're talking about something that has the relatable, or I guess measurable analysis associated with it, right? Let's just address any questions you have. So if we want to end this session, end the recording, then we can move on. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? I guess questions about the presentation, any of the content discussed? If not, we can just end the recording and we can get into it with this guest over here. We're done? Okay, let's end the recording then, please.
Great session. Thank you, Naveed.
Thank you very much for your support. God bless you. Thanks a lot. Okay. Thank you. Recording ended. All right, let's get Leif in here because he's laughing at God's miracle. Wow. What a wicked behavior. Laughing at the miracle of God. Do you not fear hell, Mr. Leif?
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, peace be upon you. What country
كيفكم؟
are you from?
آسف أنا من فلسطين أصلا.
Oh, okay. All right.
Do you speak
So,
Arabic?
no.
By the way, I was born a Muslim, so I left the faith and converted to Christianity. So I can get into it with you guys if you want.
Yeah, that's fine, but it doesn't matter. Anyone laughing at God's miracle is in horrible shape. So you're not
My
in a
friend,
good position.
I don't believe in Allah. I don't believe in Islam. So I don't believe he
So if I
exists.
look at it, that's fine. If I look at a Arabic translation of the Bible, Genesis 1:1, what does it say? What is the word used there?
Why is that relevant?
Because the word there is Allah. So do you believe in the Bible?
No, that's a false translation that came after the
Oh.
Arabs colonized the land.
So what's the Arabic
Yeah,
word for God? What's the Arabic word for God?
ilah, ilah.
No, that's lowercase God.
No. For instance, in your Shahada, you say there is no ilah, God, except Allah.
Yeah, that's a
Right?
lowercase God. In
Fair
even
enough.
How they call
in
God.
English,
Hold on.
in English, in English, we have lowercase God and we have uppercase God. In Arabic, they're
No, we
different
don't.
words. Yes,
We don't.
absolutely.
They only.
Wait. Now you're disputing English vocabulary?
I am, because we
Yeah,
just
you're
used to praise
disingenuous. Yeah,
God.
you're just
My friend, hold on. Can I
disingenuous.
not speak? You can.
I'm not interested in continuing with this. Is such a disingenuous person. If somebody else wants to talk to them, please go ahead.
Safe. Bye-bye.
No, please, Alpha, just stop, man. Somebody, Jamil or Peter or somebody else want to talk to him? Roger, you want to talk to him?
I mean, I can talk with him, but I just don't think he's being genuine. I mean, there's a clear distinction between God with a lowercase g and God with a capital G.
He's being extremely disingenuous.
It's like,
He
oh,
doesn't
they're
know
the
the
same.
difference between a nominative and a genitive case. Is that the case?
They're
Nominative and a genitive case. Is that the case?
Forget about Arabic. He doesn't even recognize it in English, so he doesn't acknowledge the different words in the English language.
And it's like, it's a bad translation. What do you mean translation? Look up what God is in Aramaic. It's still Allah. It's the name. It's the name of God. That's how you say God in different languages.
Isn't that what Jesus said when he was calling out to God? Apparently. Well, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, right?
Yeah. We unmute him,
Yeah,
or
he's
I mean,
trolling.
unless you got
I
okay.
mean, I'm curious to other people that may be more sincere. Speak S888. Can you talk? Or Pimp, are you guys able to speak?
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Hello, I'm S888.
Peace and welcome.
Thank you. I'm new to this server. I only joined a few weeks ago. I'm from London, UK. I've been a
Nice to meet
Muslim
you.
for nice
Yeah.
to meet you too online. I've been a Muslim for a long time, 30 years. And I recently came across Rashad Khalifa's work. When I say recently, I think it was about 2 months ago now. I saw a YouTube presentation. I was absolutely mind blown by the Code 19 miracle. I researched it. I've spent about 2 months researching it. I'm convinced by it, and I came across your Discord server on the mission server on YouTube. And I've been watching a lot of your discussions and hearing your discussions, and I joined the this server I think last month. That's really, for me, it's my introduction. I've enjoyed the sessions. I've enjoyed today's session. I think it's very thought provoking. I'm learning a lot from it.
That's fantastic news. God bless you. That's really good to hear. What are your current thoughts on the information we're presenting as a whole, I guess?
To be honest with you, I've only watched a few sessions. So I've watched the one that was recorded a while ago with Rashad Khalifa as the messenger. I don't know if you can remember. And it was basically producing evidence and numeric evidence for Rashad Khalifa's message, and also his death, and doing all the numeric evidence for it. And I was absolutely mind blown by it. I thought it was really well presented. The information was extremely well presented and convincing. And I've just joined this one today. So I haven't been to many of these sessions. I've only just heard a couple of them. And I generally think they're very good discussions from the two I have listened to. I mean, I enjoy them. I've learned a lot from them. I think the presentation is very good. And the discussions are very good. So I can't really give you more comments than that because I've only just listened to two. I think they're good. I mean, I commend you, and I thank you for actually organising sessions like this, and contributing your time and effort to helping other people learn, and carry on with the good work.
God bless you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and I'm happy you're here. So I guess to ask the question
Can you
more
hear me
bluntly,
clearly? Because
yeah,
I'm from
I can
London. I'm
hear.
not from yeah. Oh, excellent.
Yeah,
Okay,
it sounds like
sure.
you guys have good internet in London. I can hear you fine. Can you hear me
Oh,
okay?
good. Yeah, it's clear. It's crystal clear.
That's wonderful. So I guess to ask the question more bluntly, like, are you convinced at all of any of the claims we're making here?
Sorry, what's the question? Of the claims you're making, did you say?
Yeah, are you getting convinced of the claims that we're making?
What, by Code 19, do you mean? Is that
Well,
the
Code 19 and a submission as a whole.
yes. Code 19, definitely. Obviously, I mean, like I said, I've been a Muslim for a long time. I'm monotheist. I believe there is only one God. I believe the Quran is the word of God. I don't have any doubt in my mind. I'm 100% convinced by that, and I've been convinced by that for the past 30 years of my life. Code 19 was something new I've come across, and Rashad Khalifa's work, like I said, I only came across his work a couple of months ago. I'm 100% convinced by the Code 19 miracle. I'm convinced by his messengership. So yes, I guess to answer your question, yes, I'm convinced.
Okay, so I mean, I guess that goes without saying then that you don't subscribe to the hadith.
I don't think all hadiths are fabrications. I think I do believe that there are some hadiths that the Prophet Muhammad made that are probably genuine. I'm sure he must have made some speech. He must have said things that were recorded and written down somewhere. But I do see where you're coming from, and from the point of view that yes, many of them are fabricated. I mean, it's obvious that some of these are fabricated and are a complete insult to the Prophet. That I do agree with. I do agree with your opinion